Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Karen jumped in front of my car. I'm Alejandro, 30 male. I live in Mexico City. I was driving my usual route one weekday afternoon, just cruising along in my little sedan, trying to get home before traffic got worse. It was one of those sticky summer days, windows down, music low, not a care in the world. Then, out of nowhere, this woman steps directly in front of my car. I slammed on the brakes so hard, my tires screeched. I barely missed her, but she stumbled and dropped to the pavement anyway, like I had launched her across the street. People nearby screamed. A vendor shouted something I couldn't hear. I jumped out of the car, totally panicked, expecting to see her badly hurt. But there was no blood, no real signs of injury. Just this woman lying on the ground, moaning, clutching her ankle like she had been hit by a truck. She was crying out, "My leg, I can't move it." And a couple of concerned pedestrians rushed over. Someone called an ambulance. I stood there frozen, apologizing even though I knew I hadn't even hit her. I replayed it in my head over and over. She walked into the road right as I was coming through, like she wanted to get hit. Then came the kicker. As the paramedics started checking her out, she looked up at me and said, "We can settle this without the courts, if you want. Just pay me now, and we can forget all about it." Right there, in front of everyone. I didn't even respond, just stared at her like she had lost her mind. The paramedics said that she should go to the hospital to be checked out, even though they said nothing seemed broken. She made a whole scene getting into the ambulance, asking again if I wanted to just pay her directly. That night, I got a text from a coworker asking if I was okay. Apparently, word had already spread. Then my neighbor messaged me too. A couple people in the local group chat were saying that I ran someone over. I couldn't believe it. I checked my dash cam, and sure enough, it showed exactly what I remembered. She walked out without warning, far from any crosswalk, and fell on her own. A few days later, I got a call from my friend, Carlos. He told me she had been spreading the story that I hit her and refused to take responsibility. I was furious. I hadn't done anything wrong, and now she was turning people against me. But then, karma started working fast. Another neighbor posted screenshots from a mutual friend of hers showing that this same woman had done something similar before. She had bragged in private chats that pretending to be hurt was a good way to get quick money. She even wrote, "If they don't pay up fast, I just cry louder." Turns out this wasn't her first time pulling this trick. People started connecting the dots. A guy in another group chat said she once accused his cousin of bumping her with his scooter. She demanded money back then too. Others shared stories about how she always seemed to have drama following her, but no one ever had proof until now. Once I had the screenshots and my dashcam footage, I went to the police. I didn't want to press charges right away, but I wanted it documented in case she tried anything else. The officer I spoke to wasn't even surprised. He said scams like this are becoming more common, especially in crowded parts of the city. She didn't expect me to fight back. She thought I'd just panic and give her the money to avoid legal trouble. A couple of weeks later, officers showed up at her apartment to ask questions. They didn't arrest her, but they made it clear she had been caught. Apparently, she tried to cry again and say that she was the victim, but this time, no one bought it. She disappeared from the group chats after that. People stopped replying to her messages. Word spread quickly, and she became known as La Actrice in our neighborhood. I drove by her street not long after that, and she was just sitting on the curb alone, scrolling her phone, no falls, no drama. I won't lie, I felt a little satisfaction. I didn't need revenge, just the truth to come out, and that was enough. But now I drive extra carefully, especially near intersections, and I've got 3 backups of that dashcam footage just in case someone else decides to get theatrical in front of my bumper. Moral of the story, some people will fake anything for a payout, but if you keep your cool and your receipts, you won't have to pay for someone else's bad acting. Sounds like she mistook your car for a lottery ticket. You kept your cool, didn't fall for the theatrics, and had the receipts to back it up. Honestly, some people have way too much time and not enough shame. Good thing the truth doesn't need dramatic sound effects to land. This reminds me of the time someone in a parking lot flopped onto my hood like they were in a soap opera, then claimed that I had hit them. Luckily, a security guard saw the whole thing and called them out before they could even start asking for money. Some folks really think pulling stunts like that is easier than getting a job. You did the right thing by staying calm and not falling for her scam. Wow, the things some people do to try to scam others out of their money. Some call it scams, others call it human ingenuity. Human ingenuity? I think fraud is more accurate, Karen. Am I the jerk for housing only one nephew for college? This is a burner account and all names are fake. I, female 39, am very much not a kid person. I can tolerate them in small doses, but I find them uninteresting and annoying, and I don't want any of my own. I know some people find that off-putting. Most of the time, I can fake it if I have to, but I'd rather avoid situations where I'm expected to interact with kids. When I can't, I give off "don't talk to me" energy to keep them away, and usually I find a way to pass them off to someone else. I was the youngest in my family, and when my siblings and cousins started having kids, they resented me for not getting involved. One cousin even called me a deadbeat aunt. They pushed me for years until I finally snapped and told them how I really felt. After that, they slowly froze me out. When I was hospitalized, only one person bothered to visit or even call, and that was when I really stopped trying with them. The exception has always been my brother Michael, who's 43. He never questioned me or tried to change my mind. He was my only visitor in the hospital. He never pushed his son, Adam, on me or made me feel guilty for not showing interest until Adam was a teenager. Even during tough times in his own life, he always checked in with me when he could. Adam is now 18, and he's the only niece or nephew I've formed a bond with. I know it's favoritism. I set up a $10,000 college fund for him. I take him out every month, and I've given him some very nice gifts. His cousins haven't gotten the same. I try to keep it quiet though. I told Adam to credit the gifts to his father, and I didn't even tell him about the college fund until a month ago. The most recent gift is what caused the problem. I live in a major city, and Adam's dream school is here. He got accepted, but it was too expensive. I offered him free housing so he could commute and actually afford to attend. The problem is that another nephew, Alex, also got accepted. He comes from a disadvantaged background, and while he got a partial scholarship, it isn't enough. When he heard about my offer to Adam, he asked, through Adam, if he could be included too. But I refused. I don't have anything against Alex, but we haven't spoken in 15 years, and we were never close to begin with. It would also mean giving up a lot of money. I ran out of my spare bedrooms, and I would lose around $38,000 over 4 years. Now the rest of my family is furious. They've given me an ultimatum to either extend the offer to Alex as well, rescind it entirely, or Adam has to reject it. Or else, they'll cut off contact with Adam and Michael. They started calling Adam the golden child, saying Alex deserves my help more, and that they're tired of my favoritism. They're right about the favoritism, but I honestly don't care about my extended family anymore. I never had a dramatic falling out, but for years now, we've been effectively no contact. I value chosen family more than relatives I just happen to share DNA with. I also believe aunts and uncles are allowed to have preferences. Alex may need the help more, but that's not my responsibility. The harder part is Adam's situation. His dad supports him either way and refuses to pressure him. Adam and Alex are not close, but accepting my offer could cost him other family bonds that he values. Rejecting it would mean giving up his dream school. I do feel bad that my offer has put him in the middle of this. Edit. I can't believe I have to say this explicitly, but I don't hate kids. They're just not my cup of tea. You can not like something and not want to throw it into a trash compactor. For many people, including my biological family, there's no space in between adoring kids and not liking them at all. Not the jerk. Family who iced you out for years doesn't get to make demands about your money now. Please sit down with Adam and Michael so the two of you can explain everything to him. It's not fair that they're going to ostracize him for saying yes to your offer. Because of that, he needs to know the truth in the event it does happen and hopefully understand that they're taking the issues they have with you out on him. At least this way, if he says yes, he knows the why behind their possible behavior. And I'd probably take Alex out to have a phone call and explain it to him too, because he too is of age to understand what relationships can get you, or how the lack of relationships can close doors and opportunities. You're technically right, but you're the jerk in my opinion. How are you surprised your family stopped being interested in seeing you when you told them you hated their kids? Apparently, they were supposed to basically have an entirely separate, kid-free relationship with you, which was never realistic. Not the jerk. Quite the opposite. You are a woman of vision and humanity. Don't let this change you. Go, do your thing and focus on the people who have shown that they actually care about you. Update. I saw a few questions in my last post that I wanted to address. Why not try to form a bond with Alex now? He comes across as disingenuous. He was perfectly happy being distant from me when there was nothing to gain, but now that there is, he wants a connection. Why distance yourself from Alex because of his parents? I just didn't have a reason to form a bond with him. It's no different than not having a reason to connect with the cashier at my local grocery store. Most people who don't meet by chance end up connecting because of some kind of social link that brings them together. For an aunt and a nephew, that link usually comes through the aunt's ties to the child's parents or the wider family. Those ties don't exist here. A relationship with Alex might also be a liability since our relatives could try to use it against me, the same way they already tried with Adam. That's not a risk I want to take. Why didn't you put your family on an information diet? I did. Unfortunately, I suspect Adam slipped up in his excitement. After thinking his dream school was impossible, then suddenly being given the chance to attend, he probably let it slip. I've always stressed the importance of secrecy, but up to now, he's never experienced conditional love from relatives. He was naive and believed the best of them. It's a lesson I wish he had learned differently, but what's done is done. Some suggested I claim to have a long-term lease on my other rooms, but that wouldn't work. My relatives would likely demand I try to break the lease and take the penalties, or that Adam and Alex just share the room. Could you compromise? Maybe let them share a room. No, you don't negotiate with bullies. It sends the wrong message. Besides, it would be incredibly awkward and tense between Alex and me, and even more so between Alex and Adam if they had to live in the same room. Why not just rent out the room and give Adam the money? My rates are well below market value, and the rent wouldn't cover the cost of a room elsewhere for Adam. I could raise my prices, but then I'd have to explain to potential tenants why they were paying so much more than my current tenant. I also don't want to raise my rates on principle. I don't like that landlords and private equity squeeze the housing market. The only reason I rent my rooms at all is because they would sit empty otherwise. Offering them cheaply was my compromise between practicality and my values. I would have preferred a smaller place, but there weren't any smaller homes that met my non-negotiable requirements. You have no right to feel hurt about being abandoned in the hospital. You pushed them away. I already acknowledged in my post that everyone made decisions that led to me going no contact. I wasn't interested in what was central to their world, and they couldn't accept me as I was. I did opt out of kid-centered events, but I also reached out to arrange kid-free hangouts. I would have been fine with the occasional text or phone call. That was exactly how Michael and I stayed in touch until Adam was 7. The hospital incident didn't hurt me so much as it finalized what I already knew, that there wasn't going to be a reconciliation. As for the actual updates, Michael, his wife, and I were preparing to sit down with Adam to go over his options. We wanted to weigh the pros and cons, talk through the long-term effects, reaffirm our support, and gently guide him. It turns out we didn't need to, but not for the reason we wanted. Adam called me yesterday, clearly upset. His cousins had been talking behind his back, saying cruel things and targeting his deepest insecurities. Even if he wanted to make peace with Alex, that door is closed now. I still think we should have the talk with him, if only to help him process his feelings. It's not all bad news. A friend of a friend happens to be an interviewer for a job one of those cousins applied for. About a week ago, they asked if I knew the cousin since we share an unusual family name and look-alike. At the time, I didn't comment because I didn't know the cousin well enough. Now, that cousin is about to get a call with a warning not to hire them because of bad character. The job is in a very small industry where usually only one employer exists in a given area. I'll admit it, I'm a petty queen and I own it. I fully support the pettiness. Mess around and find out in action. I think it would have been hard for Adam not to tell any family members that he was living with you for several years. So, it's a good lesson for him too. Your story fascinates me because Reddit usually supports people who set boundaries, yet you're getting a lot of backlash. To me, you sound like someone who accepted that your preferences made you intolerable to most of your family, except Michael and his wife, who respected your choices and didn't force Adam on you. I relate because my partner and I also aren't baby or toddler people. We adopted older kids instead, and it turned out to be the best thing for everyone. Please make sure Michael's family knows what a gift they gave you by respecting your decisions. Adam shouldn't be vilified for having supportive parents. Good luck. Not the jerk. It's a shame Alex and the cousins haven't escaped their parents' influence and remain petty and entitled. Adam now has every reason to distance himself from that family drama. It's a hard lesson, but better learned now while he's young and free to build his own life. You're a good aunt, and it's not petty, it's karma. If a cousin is willing to badmouth family, they'd do the same at work. You're doing that interviewer a favor by warning them. Update 2. I thought it was implied that Adam was accepting my offer and staying with me for college, but to confirm, yes, he is. Michael, his wife, and I had the conversation with Adam to help him process what his cousins did. We reassured him that none of this was his fault. He's still sad, but he seems to be doing better. As for my plans, I did make the call to my acquaintance about the cousin. They told me that the cousin had been neck and neck with another candidate, and there was one final interview left, which was inconveniently timed for them. They thanked me for giving them an excuse to cancel it. The petty part of me also looked up similar jobs nearby, and unlike the one I just blocked the cousin from, those jobs were non-union, likely mismanaged and paid less. The cherry on top came when I told Adam. He was genuinely happy about it and pointed out that the job the cousin just lost was only a 10-minute commute. His mom scolded me for being childish, but the look on her face told me she didn't really mind. Unless something unexpected happens, this will be the final update. It's not being petty, it's enforcing your reputation as a reputable member of your industry and as a reliable reference. It's a shame your cousin has displayed such unreliable and unprofessional habits, but very kind of you to forewarn someone who contacted you for a character reference. Such a shame your cousin never made the effort to be someone worthy of a good reference, or at least was decent enough that you'd have nothing negative to say. That's karma. Not the jerk. Alex had it coming with his ultimatum and the overall terrible behavior. You have Adam back. The rest of your hunchbacked relatives can kick rocks.
So, Adam got the free room, the cousin lost the job, and you're calling it petty?
Petty? No, that's just cause and effect.
More like karma with a house key.
Either way, Adam's set for college, and the cousin's set for job hunting.
Oof, that's what we call higher education in action.
Yeah, and sometimes the tuition is paid in karma. Manager told us we had to do the dress code to the letter, so I did, to the letter. I used to work at a company that technically had a business casual dress code. It was one of those rules everyone knew existed, but no one really paid attention to. People wore polo shirts, slacks, blouses, cardigans, khakis. As long as you looked presentable, no one cared. Clients never complained, and HR never enforced it. It was a comfortable middle ground where we could work without thinking too hard about what to put on in the morning. Then we got a new manager. He came in wanting to make his mark. You know the type. Fresh face, determined to show authority right away. In his very first week, he sent an all-staff email. The subject line alone made people groan. Reminder, dress code. The message said, "From now on, the dress code is to be followed verbatim as written in the employee handbook. No exceptions." That was it. No clarification, just a command. All right, if he wanted verbatim, I was going to give him verbatim. I went home that evening, pulled out my dusty employee handbook, and actually read the dress code section. It hadn't been updated since the late 1990s. The language was outdated, the expectations strict. For men, dress shirt, tie, slacks, and jacket. For women, knee-length skirt, nylons, blouse, and closed-toe shoes. No mention of polos, no cardigans, no khakis. Basically, everything people had been wearing for the past 20 years was off the table. So that Monday morning, I showed up in a full suit and tie. I rarely wore jackets to work, so everyone noticed right away. "Got a job interview later?" one coworker asked me. I just smiled and said, "Nope, just following the handbook." By Tuesday, word had spread. Other people started digging out their handbooks too, because if the manager was going to enforce this, everyone needed to know the rules. And once they read it, they realized just how strict it was. By Wednesday, the office looked like it had traveled back in time. One coworker wore shoulder pads straight out of the 90s. Another guy dusted off his wedding suit. Someone else added suspenders because, as he put it, the handbook doesn't forbid them, so why not? The women were sweltering in nylons in the middle of August. Every hallway conversation turned into complaints about how hot it was, how uncomfortable the clothes were, and how ridiculous it felt to be typing spreadsheets while dressed like you were about to attend a formal dinner. The worst part? The handbook specifically said jackets had to be kept on while seated at your desk. That meant no rolling up sleeves, no hanging jackets on chairs, no relief at all. The air conditioning wasn't built for a room full of people in full suits, so the place felt stuffy within an hour of starting the day. People were sweating through shirts before lunchtime. By Thursday, the entire atmosphere had changed. Normally, our office had a casual buzz. People laughed, made small talk, worked at a steady pace. That week, it was miserable. Everyone sat stiffly in their chairs, tugging at collars, dabbing at their foreheads, fanning themselves with paper. Conversations were reduced to groans and muttered complaints. HR started getting emails. At first, it was one or two, but then the complaints piled up. Some called it hostile working conditions. Others said productivity was dropping because people couldn't focus through the heat and discomfort. Even clients noticed when they came in for meetings. One asked if there was a funeral happening because everyone looked so grim in dark suits. By Friday, people were openly joking about staging a mutiny. Someone printed out copies of the handbook and highlighted every ridiculous rule. Another suggested we all show up in tuxedos just to prove a point. It only took 1 week for HR to step in. The following Monday, a new message came out. This time, the wording was a lot more relaxed. Please use common sense in following the dress code. Business casual, as previously done, is acceptable. And just like that, polos and khakis made their triumphant return. Cardigans were back. People kicked off their uncomfortable shoes and went right back to what they had been doing before. And the manager? He never brought up the handbook again. I used to be a staff rep, and whenever HR announced a new policy, the phrase, "We already have a policy for that," came up a lot. Usually it meant the new policy only covered part of the issue, so HR had to issue yet another update to patch the sections the old policy still controlled. Some of those handbooks sound like they were last updated with a typewriter.
Please, half of them probably still mention fax machines as essential equipment.
Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if one still had a dress code for pagers.
Or a policy on horse and buggy parking out back.
Am I the jerk for not returning a pet to their owner who lives over 1,000 miles away? I went to a friend's place for dinner and I found a friendly cat outside his apartment. I decided that if the cat was still there after dinner, I would take him home for a bit since I wanted to see what it would be like to have a cat. After 2 hours, he was still there. I noticed he was neutered, so I took him to urgent care to see if he had a microchip. The cat turned out to be a 6-month-old male American Shorthair. They found a microchip, called the owners, and left them my contact information via voicemail. The owner's address was in Virginia, while I live in Arkansas, over 1,000 miles away. That night, I bought some cat supplies and I let him stay at my place. The next morning, the owner called me and told me the following. The cat was stolen 2 months ago, along with all of the cat supplies she had for him. She lives in Virginia. The crazy thing is, this is the 3rd time that she's had a pet stolen. She didn't care how long it took, she just wanted her cat back. I told her I'd figure something out, and this is how our conversation went, word for word. Me: how do you want to get your cat back? Karen:
I have no idea. You're a 4-hour flight away.
Me: if you fly over to the airport, I can meet you there and hand him over to you. I don't think I should be the only one to fly over.
Karen: I don't have any money to fly anywhere. My cat was stolen and taken to another state. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that.
Me. I'm willing to foster him until you have the funds to fly out.
Her. I guess I'm just never going to get my cat back. It's whatever.
2 days later. Me. I'm going to take care of him until September 14th. If you still can't afford to fly over, I'm going to leave him at a shelter and I'll send you their contact information. Edit. There are great shelters around my area that would be much better for the cat than my apartment. My idea was to hold on to him to give the owner time to make a decision. If she doesn't want him back, then I'll just keep him.
Her. At this point, it's whatever. You can have him. I don't have the money to just get on a plane, and it doesn't look like anybody's going to give me my cat back. So I'm just going to let the police handle it. End of conversation.
Why did I think he was a stray cat? Well, if he was an outdoor cat, wouldn't the owner have put a collar on him or something? He also had untrimmed claws. If he was an indoor cat, wouldn't his claws be trimmed? He was too friendly. I've never met a cat that walks up to people and lets them pet its belly and paws, so I thought he was sick. Turns out that's just how he is. I asked my friend to keep a lookout for lost pet posters in case the cat has a second owner. Not the jerk. You are not obligated to cover travel to return the cat. If this person wants their cat back, they have to come get it or arrange for its transportation. You've done all that's required of you, and for some people, the cost of doing something like this isn't worth getting their cat back. Clearly, they're telling you that you can just keep the cat if they're not getting it back, or take it to a shelter. But if they do call the police, make sure you document your attempts to return the cat to the owner along with your bills for the vet visits to establish a timeline. Not the jerk. But man, I really wish I knew the story about this lady and why her cats keep getting stolen, and at least the one cat ended up 1,000 miles away. That's so weird. What sane person would pick up what appears to be a stray cat just to see what having a cat would be like? There's something very weird about your story. A 6-month-old cat is still a kitten, and American Shorthairs can cost from $800 to $1,500 or more, depending on the breeder. And now you're planning to leave him at a shelter? I'm going to go against the majority of the posts on here and say you're the jerk. He deserves so much better than you. Am I the jerk for not comforting my brother after his wife cheated on him again? Plus final update. About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She had been cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother stay in my apartment for months. He fell into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have any money and even lost his job because he didn't want to move from the couch or bathe. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by it. I did everything for him. She just left and blocked him everywhere. She simply confessed that she had been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun receiving psychological help and had changed completely. She felt regretful and she was very sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health, but he didn't. I always had a bad feeling and could smell trouble from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time, saying that she had changed, they were too young, they were having problems, etc. He even got angry when I told him that she was still not trustworthy. Shortly after that, they got back together, and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship when he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to leave me alone, and we didn't talk anymore. Now, my brother has reappeared at my house after years without talking to him to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have kids. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his kids. He hasn't even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding and he didn't show up. I told him that at this moment, I can't let him stay in my house, which is actually true because I can't handle that kind of stress. He told me that we're siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too and he was never there for me. He cut me off for that woman. We had an argument and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He's staying with our parents now, and my mother just keeps telling me that it's not the time to hold a grudge against him and that he needs me, but I can't forget how he didn't think twice. Update. I've spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to see me since I can't move too much. She told me that my brother is very sorry. I replied that he should tell me that directly, not through her, but my mother said my brother is too embarrassed by his actions. I told her that I'm not going to let her be any kind of mediator. My brother is an adult and he can speak for himself. 2 days ago, my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He admitted something I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife and was always completely blind to her faults. He believed that all of us who were against him going back to her were toxic and he should cut us out of his life, so that's what he did. He blocked me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him, "I told you so," nor will I, because he already knows that. Some people were worried about whether or not his kids were his, but I can assure everyone they are. They look identical to him, and luckily, she was probably faithful at that time. After talking, he apologized and told me that he needs me. I told him the same thing I said before. I needed him too, and he was never there. I forgave him for everything, but that doesn't mean I want to go back to how things were beforehand, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he plans to do about his wife, and I don't want the situation to repeat itself. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice and only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding, maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him, thinking he might come late, and I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as they have been because I've gotten used to not having him in my life. I don't trust that he just won't use me as a nurse and a therapist again. At first, he didn't understand and said that we're siblings and should be united, but when I reminded him that he forgot that for years, he fell silent. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, and I've made it clear to my mother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Some may call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me the way that she treats him. My Karen sister loses it when I tell her I don't want kids, I want money. My sister has a 5-month-old baby. Her and her boyfriend are not struggling financially, but their standard of living has very much decreased since giving birth. They can afford the necessities, but they can't go on vacation, can't go out to eat, and can't afford a babysitter. They also just moved into a cheaper apartment. My mom has been asking my sister and the baby to move in with her so that they can save money. My sister said no. For more context, my sister's boyfriend makes a little less than minimum wage. He only works part-time at a restaurant to focus on creating his music. When my sister announced they were trying for a baby, my mom was really worried, and she's still worried, about their financial situation. My sister is the primary income source for their household, and my mom has been giving them some money every month. I make a little more than my sister, but I don't have kids. So last night, all of us came together for dinner. My sister kept asking me when I'm going to have kids, and I said I don't plan on having any. She said I'll change my mind. I'm almost 30. I said I probably won't, and she kept pressing me on why. I finally just said, I don't want kids, I want money, and she got really quiet. When dinner was over, she left a voicemail to my mom crying about how I attacked her, and my mom is now mad at me. My mom wants me to apologize to my sister. To be clear, I do think my sister is in a nightmare situation, but I would have said I wanted money even if she didn't have a baby. I've always thought I'm not meant for parenthood, and I'd rather just be the cool, fun aunt that travels a lot and buys big presents for my nieces and nephews. I didn't mean to insult her, and I've never once commented on her financials or relationship because it's not my place. Am I the jerk, and should I apologize? Not the jerk. This is one of those things where context matters. If you were sitting at dinner and just randomly blurted out, I don't want kids, I want money, that would be a jerk thing to say to your sister. But when she starts asking when you're gonna have kids, and especially when she refused to drop it, she's asking for a response like this. She asked and you answered. She doesn't like your answer. That's on her for pressing you for one in the first place. You didn't attack her. You upset her by being honest, and that's not your fault. Not the jerk, and I don't think you owe her an apology, but a conversation is a good idea. It sounds like she's actually pretty upset herself about her finances, and your response touched a nerve. Maybe start with something like, hey, it wasn't my intention to offend you in any way, and I'm honestly confused as to why this upset you so much. I gave you my honest answer after being pressured, and I can't help feeling like maybe this is really about something else. Am I the jerk for belittling my sister and saying she shouldn't demand her husband help with their baby at night? My husband and I went through surrogacy options and had our son 4 months ago. We were thrilled when my sister, who's 31, announced her pregnancy, and we found out that we would be having kids very near the same time. Our niece was born a little over 2 months after our son. My situation and my sister's closely mirror each other. Our husbands both work typical 9 to 5s with 30 to 45-minute commutes. My sister is a stay-at-home mom, and I do freelance work from home. For the first 2 weeks after our son was born, the first of which my husband took off of work, we would both take partial night shifts. Once I felt like I had at least some of my bearings on parenthood, I offered to take over completely on weeknights, while he does mornings before work plus weekends. It's a collaborative process, and that breakdown of parenting just made sense to me. My husband was the one leaving our home to work every day. He was the one who had to be up by a specific time and make a drive. At 4 months, we no longer have this obstacle anymore. And to be honest, I kind of miss the sweet, quiet bonding time those extra night feeds provided now that he's settled onto a nice sleep schedule and usually only wakes up once. Still, I think we got it down to almost the perfect science before we exited the newborn stage. My sister, on the other hand, is very much still in that phase and struggling. This has been a recurring problem for her from the beginning. She has been coming to me saying she's scared she's going to fall asleep holding the baby, that her husband won't help her with the night feeds, etc. I tried to give her tips since I've been through it. I suggested she let her partner take over in the evenings, 6 to 9 p.m., so she can go to bed early and catch a few more hours, nap when the baby naps, etc. She shot down everything, saying that wouldn't work for them, and that she just needed her partner to do some of the night feedings. I reminded her that her husband is the one commuting in the mornings and falling asleep while driving was a very real possibility, and that I had lived through it and so could she. I then offered to watch her daughter for a few days so she could catch up on sleep. She took major offense to both of these things. She said I was belittling her experience and acting like I was a better parent. She said I couldn't truly empathize with her or give her valuable tips since she had been pregnant and I hadn't, and that me offering to watch my niece just felt like me saying she needed help raising her own daughter. My intentions were definitely not malicious, and I'd like some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk? Update. I have apologized because I was definitely the jerk for those comments, even if I didn't intend to be. My sister accepted said apology, and hopefully moving forward, I can truly be the listening ear she needed and not someone who offers solutions that weren't asked for, especially when our circumstances aren't that similar. My husband has clearly been taking on many more parenting duties than hers, and she and my niece both deserve better than that. Full offense. Yes, you're the jerk. Your situations do not closely mirror each other. Her experience has been very different, especially considering her body is still recovering from pregnancy and giving birth, which is painful and completely exhausting. Did she have a C-section or natural birth? Did she have a tear, stitches? These details matter. She could also be struggling with PPD, something you do not have to worry about. I don't say this to belittle you. I say this because you're belittling her. You're turning this into a competition, and it's clear you do think you're the better mother. How arrogant. It's normal to expect your husband to help with night feedings. Just because you have not needed that help, likely because you didn't give birth and have absolutely no idea what that's like, does not mean you get to pass judgment on your sister for having different needs. Every baby is different, even siblings with the same parents can be entirely different. If you actually want to help her, stop comparing yourselves and stop acting like she's doing something wrong. Her baby and her schedule are her life and not yours, and they are not like yours. Stop that. Be supportive and kind. Be a good sister. My husband made our nanny quit. I, 29 female, am married to my husband, who's 34, and we have a nanny who's 21. We hired our nanny over a year ago when I was pregnant with our daughter, while I had a toddler who was 2 at the time, who's now 4, and I couldn't do much work, and my husband couldn't be with me all the time due to his work. She's amazing with our girls. She has helped me so much during the last few months of my pregnancy and especially postpartum. None of my friends are pregnant yet, so they couldn't always help me, and I don't have mom, nor am I close with my mother-in-law. I didn't have anyone to confide in like that. Our nanny has so much experience and was so amazing to me. She made me amazing soups and stews from her culture that were made to help pregnant women. It was amazing. She would make my toddler have quiet time, which was even more amazing. She's always on time, she's very clean, an amazing cook, really fun with the girls, and a good teacher as well. Our nanny and my husband only met once, and that was during our Zoom meeting, and they have never met after that. Since she gets here after my husband leaves and leaves before he comes back, they've never crossed paths before. 3 weeks ago, me and husband got really sick, so my husband stayed home from work. Due to how sick I was, I forgot to relay this information to our nanny. Our baby has been extremely clingy the past few months and will cry if left alone. I usually bring her in the bathroom with me, but the bathroom downstairs is much smaller, so our nanny can't do that as comfortably. She decided to just start using the bathroom with the door cracked open and would give our baby a toy outside so she's not tempted to come in but can still see her. I'm aware of this and I'm fine with it since it's only us girls at home. While my husband was home, unbeknownst to her, she went to use the bathroom with the door open and my husband saw her. She completely freaked out and apologized profusely. I had no issue and apologized to her that I forgot to let her know my husband was home. Everything was fine, but I sensed she was extremely uncomfortable, which I kept apologizing for. The next few days, my husband started going to work late and coming home early, to which there would be more interactions between him and the nanny. When I hired our nanny, one of the things she told me was that she wasn't comfortable with adult men in the house, which was not a problem since our arrangement didn't allow it. When he would see her, he kept trying to make personal conversations with our nanny redirected to our girls. Last week, she spoke with me and reminded me of the agreement we had, which was no adult men in the house and that she was uncomfortable. I completely understood where she was coming from. I spoke with my husband and he apologized to her and me. The next day he went to work normal, then 2 days later he told me he had to work from home since his office is getting worked on. We talked to our nanny and my husband told us that he would stay upstairs the whole time, which worked for the rest of the week. Monday, he accidentally forgot his coffee and went to get it while our nanny was there. He was asking her personal questions. He asked her how her weekend was, which she responded, good, and then he had the nerve to ask her if she saw her boyfriend. She responded no and that she didn't have one. He went on to ask her what type of men she was into. I was downstairs quickly to stop it. I apologized to our nanny. When we got upstairs, I yelled at him for talking to her like that and reminded him what he agreed to and that he was to stay away from her. I noticed he was monitoring the nanny cam a lot and he told me that he was just checking in on the girls. Yesterday, I had a really bad stomach ache because I'm lactose intolerant and my husband accidentally put whole milk in both of our coffees. I asked him to go in the day with the nanny and lock up the door after that. Unbeknownst to me, he started asking her what type of men she was into and was telling her how he's dated black women before and is into them. Our nanny is black and I'm not. He also jokingly grabbed her shoulders to pick her up and move her aside to get to the fridge. Why didn't he just say excuse me is beyond me right now. Last night, our nanny tried calling me, but I was sleeping because I took some medicine for my stomach. I woke up today to see a text from her that she was quitting because she didn't feel comfortable coming to the house anymore. I texted and called her and she hasn't picked up. I'm beyond angry at my husband and I took some time to calm down, but really I can't. I don't think I can replace her and truly I don't want to. I don't want to start this all over again. We know each other so well. We have inside jokes. We have memories that I can't recreate. She is someone I have felt comfortable enough to confide in with everything. She's been with me throughout special moments with the kids and even for me. I'm not upset with her at all and completely understand why she's shaken up by all of this, so I've accepted giving her some space. I just really wasn't prepared for this. Edit. First, for people saying our nanny is wrong because my husband lives here and should be comfortable. She came highly recommended from a woman from our church and we wanted her. She gave us her requirements and one of them was that she's uncomfortable working with adult men in the house. We agreed, including my husband. Whenever he has finished work early, he stops by somewhere else to work or hang out until Nanny leaves. Nanny isn't mentally ill for not wanting men in the house. She's explained to me that she's had issues with husbands making weird advances or sometimes wives accusing her of things, so to avoid problems, she just doesn't want them in the house. Second, I still have a nanny because I'm now trying to work. Third, I do not like my husband, nor do I condone his behavior. We have had issues since he became useless to our family. My needs weren't grave when I was pregnant. I just needed certain foods, medicine, and help with showers, but he wouldn't help with anything, and this was with our first kid. And the second one, we got a nanny. I've thought about divorce, but I kind of need his money. If it was just me, I would have divorced him already, but I have kids, so I'm aware of what he was trying to do. I have talked to and scolded him. Fourth, I usually make our coffees, but he made them yesterday because baby kept me up all night and he was home. I put the drink in glass containers with labels that it would be easy to mix up. It also tasted the same. Update. I didn't marry my husband for the money. We dated when I was in college and then he proposed. We loved each other a lot and everything was great in our marriage. When I got pregnant with our first, it was good. He was helpful. Then somewhere along the line, he just started becoming distant. I always handled everything in the house since I didn't work, but even in the third trimester, he refused to help and would always say he's tired,
but would play basketball outside or video games. He started working later and it caused some problems. We got couples counseling and it fixed some things and we were pretty good. Hence the second kid happened. The second pregnancy was really bad. I mean, at my first trimester, I was in and out of the hospital, and when at home, walking or standing was really hard, so I would need help getting to the shower, and things like that, or my medication, which he didn't help with and avoided me. So there would be days where our daughter would only eat leftover snacks from our room because I couldn't move. If you asked him where the cleaning supplies are in the house, he wouldn't know because he's never cleaned it before. And he would buy food on the way home and eat, and then when he'd get home, he'd say that he forgot and offer to go get some, knowing that where we live, it would have to be a 20-minute drive, and by the time he'll get home, the baby would already be sleeping. People who said our nanny was being prioritized over my husband is ridiculous. My husband isn't trapped in the house, and we didn't move our lives around the nanny. The hour she's here is when my husband is at work. He chose to avoid seeing her, and that's why if he finished early, he wouldn't come home. What a jerk your husband is. Oh Lord, reading this was pretty infuriating. What a massive jerk your husband is. OP divorcing is really the best solution at this point. Also, why is the sitter getting trashed by some of the commenters? She's completely innocent. I broke up with my fiance, and he says he'll call the police if I take our cat with me when I move. Me and my ex found a kitten in the backyard back in June. I've been paying for all of her food, litter, toys, and carrier, and I'll be paying for the vet appointments too in a week, for the entire time that we've had her. I have proof and store receipts of me paying for all of her things. He hasn't paid a single cent for her. He never has money and has had 3 different jobs since we moved in together in March. I'm leaving him, and he says I can't take her with me. He does not clean her litter box or feed her, and I have video proof. He also trashes the room and never cleans it, and I have video proof. If I left her with him, she would be alone all day for 5 days a week. For the 2 days that he is home, all he does is play video games all day. He says if I bring the cat with me when I move, he will call the police. What can I do? Update. So on my last post, a lot of people mentioned that I should make sure I wouldn't be responsible for the lease when I move, and maybe I should have explained the situation more. Me and my ex rented a room in a house. We have a live-in landlord who is pretty lax and another roommate. He's very understanding, and I would not have been responsible for the lease after moving out, even if my ex did not pay. I also remember someone else asking how it was possible that I have proof of him not doing things. I basically had blog videos of the days and the timestamps of the litter box not being cleaned, and me cleaning them up, and text messages and videos of me having conversations with him about how I'm the only one taking care of her, and him admitting it on camera and then in text. That was the proof that I had. Today, my ex moved out. When I made my last post, he said he was going to stay and pay rent without me, but before the month was up, he decided to move back in with his parents. Today, his whole family came to the house to take his things into a U-Haul. His father came at me, going off at me, which I have video of, and his mother came into the room and took my cat's cat tree that the landlord gifted to me. That's fine, because I've already ordered the exact same one and it's gonna get here in a few days. They're insane people, and I'm so glad to have them out of my life. The cat is with me. I took her to the vet the other day and got her vaccinations and got her chipped and registered in my name, and when my ex found out, he was very mad, but he would not have been able to afford $581 anyway. My ex also said that he was going to take all of my things back that he bought for me when we first started dating, like my Xbox and my TV and my headset, but I flat out refused, and I told him that I legally do not have to give those things back, and he did not try to fight me on those because he already has his own Xbox and TV. So that's the update. I have my cat and I have all my things, and he's out of my life for good until I have to take him to court to fix the whole front bumper and hood of my car for crashing into a dining room table chair on a highway when I let him drive my car home from work. That's a whole nother story. Am I the jerk for demanding that my husband pays half of the takeaway food we order? My husband, 40 male, and I, 35 female, have very different jobs. Basically, I make double than what he does, and he argues that I should pay for takeaway food, especially because I'm the wife and I should be the one to cook. Therefore, if I cannot cook, then I should make up for it by paying for takeaway, since he already shares the split bill for food, groceries, and rent. To give you a little bit of context, I've just taken on a new role at the start of this month as a head of a department with 6 new members of staff and a lot of loose ends to tie from previous leadership. We both wake up at 4:30 a.m.,
And while he gets home at around 3:30 p.m., I find myself arriving around 5:30 p.m. on a light day. His job involves food processing, and while it is a labor process, when he leaves his workplace, that's the end of the day for him, whereas I come home and continue working from home, including weekends, until around 9 p.m., when I just pass out as I'm too tired. For him, home time means 90% being on his phone or laptop, watching videos and playing games, making coffee and smoking cigarettes. I'm not going to lie and say he never helps. He does clean the bathroom and hoovers occasionally, once a month, and does the dishes, not without complaining though. Now it has come to a point where a few months ago, while he had one too many drinks, he told everyone at the table that he was investing all of his money into my backside. This is when I started downloading every single receipt for grocery, phone bills, rent, Uber drives, takeaway, holiday accommodations, everything, all paid for by me. His argument is that some of those trips were things that I wanted to do or see, which is why I never reproached anything to him. However, the fishing trips that he wanted so much also came out of my own pocket, and I never asked him a dime for it. Last month, as we were mostly on holiday, he only contributed worth around $200 towards monthly expenses with food, rent, bills, which again, I did not complain about, as I knew that he wasn't paid for most of that month. But now, once he's working, he's refusing to give me anything that is beyond rent, bills, and groceries, stating that I'm the woman of the house and it's my job to do the cooking. I told him that I am spread thin these days until everything is more streamlined with everything at work, and that maybe he could cook every now and then or heat some ready-made food, microwave or oven. But he asked me what was the point of him getting married if he was going to do the cooking himself. So, am I the jerk for wanting the bills to be shared equally if both of us are eating? Also, not one single time when I asked him about ordering did he mention the fact that I would have to pay for all of it. In certain instances, he was even the one asking me to order food. Edit. For those wondering why we have separate finances, it's because whenever he had access to money, he just spent it on all sorts of fishing gear. Also, for those wondering why I'm still with him or what I get out of this marriage, it's simple. I love him. I suggested counseling, but he laughed in my face, saying I'm crazy and he doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do when he already knows what he wants. I will suggest the 1/3 to 2/3 split for all shared bills though. Not sure what to do about holidays and other expenses. I feel that he will still expect me to pay for those, so we'll need to sit down and have a long conversation about expectations. Not the jerk, but why did you marry him? I would separate finances immediately. Don't pay for anything for him anymore. If you order food, order only for yourself. He can find out himself how to get food. If someone ever would tell me that they are investing all their money into my backside, honestly, I'd be gone. Especially if I make more money than them, but also if I'm earning less. It would be too disrespectful in my eyes. Am I the jerk for saying I won't pick up my niece from school anymore if my brother and sister-in-law keep acting like this? Both of my brothers rely heavily on our family. Me, 24 female, my mom and my dad, for childcare, due to passings on the other sides of their family, etc. None of us mind. We all adore their kids and love spending time with them. But you give them an inch and they take a mile. They asked for an extra day a week. My parents said they were sorry, but they didn't think they could handle it. So they started on the, but we can't afford childcare. It's such a shame our kids might have to do without things they like because we have to spend more on childcare. Bear in mind, one family brings in $130,000 a year. The other brings in around $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Childcare is expensive, sure, but they're also both very financially comfortable. I'm picking up my niece, from the family earning $130,000 plus, from school for a couple days because their other childcare plans fell through and they're unable to. I don't mind, I adore her, but she's definitely a lot of work. I don't have my own kids, so after a few hours, I'm tired. It gets to be a lot, and I definitely enjoy my peace when she's gone. They're now dropping hints to me that they're exhausted. They don't enjoy the school run in the mornings, and essentially, they're trying to get me to agree to having her sleep over tomorrow night and again on Tuesday night, which is a ton more work. It means I have to be up a good hour earlier for work, and I'll be late to work due to having to drop her off at school, which is 20 minutes in the opposite direction to my office. I told them if they didn't stop, they would have to figure out alternative arrangements for the school run. They're fuming, saying I would eventually leave my niece confused, upset, and alone at school because I can't be bothered to pick her up. Obviously, I would never leave my niece on her own at school, but to be honest, I don't enjoy it when she stays over. She takes a lot of energy,
and I enjoy my own routine and time in the evenings. I know if I ever have kids, that'll change, but for now I don't have kids and I don't want them. I feel like they just take and take and take. They never pay for after-school clubs or breakfast clubs. If they want a night away, they always expect free babysitting from me. I've watched one of my nieces before, needed a lift afterwards, and my sister-in-law just called a taxi for me and expected me to pay for it. They always say they owe me one, but what can they owe me? When I babysit at their houses, I take my own dinner and snacks. The most I have is water. I never get paid, I don't have my own kids, and even if I did, they'd be too tired to babysit, no doubt. I just feel a bit annoyed that they expect so much from me when I'm 24 and trying to live my own life. My wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. During a huge fight, my wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. My wife and I have a 6-year-old daughter together. We've been married for almost 9 years. We got into a really big argument, which isn't unusual for us these days. We've been on the verge of divorce multiple times, but always end up changing our minds. This time, she got so mad that she yelled at the top of her lungs, "She's not even your daughter, and he was a better hookup too." She being our daughter, of course. My wife's facial expression told me immediately that she had realized what she had said. Then she claimed she was just mad and said it just to be mean. It's not true, blah blah blah. It made me start to think about when our daughter was conceived. We had been having marital problems even back then. We had actually kind of informally separated for a short time, and I was pretty sure I was done with the whole thing, but we both changed our minds. I can't help but wonder if she was with somebody else during that time. She could have just said what she said to be cruel, but that's a pretty serious thing to say. I'm looking at my daughter and wondering if features I thought she got from me really aren't for me at all. She looks so much like my wife that it's hard to see much of anyone else in her at all anyway. I love my daughter. I love being a dad, her dad. I feel like I was meant to do it. We have such a great relationship. She loves her mom, but my daughter and I just have a special bond that my wife has said that she's jealous of. That may be why she said what she did. I don't know. It wouldn't change how I felt about my daughter, but my wife would definitely no longer be my wife. It scares me to even think that somebody else could have some sort of parental right to my kid, even though I'm still legally her father regardless of DNA. It's not like a random guy is going to want to come along all these years later and try to establish paternity anyway, but it's still unsettling. I'm probably overthinking it, and my wife was most likely just trying to be extra cruel, which is her defense mechanism in arguments, but I just wish that I could stop thinking about it. True or false, I would not want to stay with a person who said that. She opened that door. Do the DNA test. You're avoiding the DNA test because you don't want to feel more crappy than you already do. The percentage of kids born from their moms cheating is actually extraordinarily high. I feel bad for you, man, but this sort of thing is incredibly common. The number of guys out there raising other men's children without even knowing is just insane. You've become a statistic, and I hope you learn from this. You shouldn't have stayed with her if she was problematic from the jump. Well, what do you think? Should OP get a DNA test or not? Please let us know. I don't care how evil someone is. Saying something like that? Dude, there's a reason she said it. My boyfriend's mother keeps putting an ingredient that I'm allergic to in her dishes, with updates. This has been somewhat of a nightmare, so any advice would be amazing. My boyfriend is also 23 for clarity. I have a garlic allergy. It's not lethal, and I definitely wouldn't get anaphylaxis or something from it. The problem is that I get asthma if I eat it, and I'll really mess up my digestion later. Everyone in my life knows that I can't have garlic, and I won't have garlic. It makes eating out a nightmare because of how prevalent it is. So usually my boyfriend and I have date nights at our apartment and we cook for each other. But my boyfriend's mom has a family tradition and she insists we all come to dinner at least once a month. She's a fantastic cook and usually a really nice lady to be around, but there's one problem. She wants me to come every time, but she always adds garlic to every dish. At this point, I've just started taking an inhaler and just eating the Hawaiian rolls that she always serves. My boyfriend drives us and we just go get fast food right after. We've talked to her over and over about the garlic. I've asked her over and over to please not use garlic, and she says she doesn't understand how it's such a big deal because it's not like you'll die. I've tried skipping the meals, but she throws a fit and drags her entire family into it. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years now, and I'm best friends with his sister. I'm at my wit's end. How do I get this through to her? Edit. I have brought my own food before, usually something like simple mac and cheese. I did it twice, but both times she was angry and basically made for an incredibly unhappy evening. Update. To those of you who said she just didn't like me, You are 100% correct. After my boyfriend woke up yesterday, we had a long talk about how bothersome his mother's refusal to take out garlic is. He agreed that we should skip the dinner until she takes it out. Something about it still bothered me, so I ended up calling her and just bluntly asking her. She kept evading the question, saying she's just a garlic lover, that she doesn't understand what the big deal is, etc. Finally, after like 30 minutes of back and forth, she finally admitted that she just doesn't like me. I think I'm correct in drawing the conclusion that she was trying to drive me away from her family with garlic shenanigans, but maybe I'm just overthinking, I don't know. Anyways, I asked if it was because of my job. I'm a receptionist. My age, background, whatever. And she just flat out told me that she doesn't like that I have my septum and my tongue done, and that I color my hair unnatural colors. She thinks it's unprofessional and proves that I'm too much of a wild child to date her son. Which sucks, because I really like this woman, but I guess she was just polite out of courtesy rather than actually liking me herself. After I ended the call, I went to go find my boyfriend, and he basically fessed up and said that, yeah, his mother was not a fan and kept basically hinting that we should break up. Mostly by mentioning stuff like, "My friend Jenny has such a cute daughter," and that sort of thing, which really hurts, but I'm glad I know now. Anyways, my boyfriend and his sister have both agreed to just start up a group dinner once a month. I'm going to stop going to the dinners, and my boyfriend will just go without me. Update. I broke up with him and basically spent the day fielding texts from him asking what was going on and why I was freaking out over his mom. As I said in the update, I got the ick. The more I thought about how he didn't defend me to his mother, refused to tell me about her underhanded tactics, the more I just didn't like him anymore. It was like a switch flipped. So when he woke up, he got a call from me saying this wouldn't work out. We had a long conversation that basically turned into him being defensive. In the end, I was firm. I also sent a text to his sister along the lines of, "If you've got questions, ask your brother," before I blocked her, of course, too. It's kind of crappy that I lost my best friend and my boyfriend, but on the bright side, at least it wasn't cheating and they just suck. Thank you everyone for the advice, and hopefully I find a better man with a better family. Honestly, this is one of those situations in which you would be justified to leave. Your boyfriend could have told you that she didn't like you. He could have told you he suspected she was doing it on purpose. My boyfriend would never have me at his parents' home for food if they did something like this. They wouldn't. They're lovely people and know that I can't eat certain foods. Your boyfriend has done absolutely nothing to protect you from this behavior. You can do better. So your boyfriend knew his mother didn't like you, but kept deliberately putting you in a position where your health could be impacted? Why would you stay with such a spineless mummy's boy who won't stand up for you? You can't avoid his mother forever. Kudos for having the guts to call her out though. That was brave. I know you don't want to hear this, and I'll get downvoted for this, but this is far from the last person who will judge you and dislike you based on your septum and tongue piercings. Those modifications are seen as radical and extremely unappealing by the majority, mostly people older than you. It's a choice you made, and the consequences are people judging you based on your looks. She thinks that you're a vampire and she's using garlic to repel you, with partial success. Am I the jerk for telling my pregnant sister that her husband can't sleep at my house and in turn kicking her out too? I'm 30, female. My pregnant sister, who's 34, and her husband, who's 42, planned 2 weekend trips to visit me on the West Coast, also as a pit stop to get to and from Hawaii. My sister, Jane, is pregnant, and this trip is their baby moon. Jane's husband is Charles, and my husband is Victor. Background. I don't like how Charles speaks to Jane in general. He often argues and raises his voice throughout the day about trivial things. I've talked to Jane about his behavior before, and she's told me, "I realize how he sounds when he talks to people. We fight about it all the time, and I think he just needs anger management." It always ends with her apologizing or making excuses. Weekend 1. The entire time we spent with Charles was quite exhausting and miserable for me. He argued with my sister multiple times. When Victor speaks, I can see Charles rolling his eyes, nudging Jane's elbow, and whispering snide remarks to her. He seems to think these all go unnoticed by us. He usually talks down to me, cuts me off, and enjoys flaunting his knowledge. My brother, mom, and some cousins also find him a difficult person to be around. Charles and Jane leave my house, and the next day I'm overwhelmed by the stress and how uncomfortable Charles always makes me feel. Victor finds me crying and thinks they should not come back to sleep in our home because it's so stressful for me, but agrees we should still hang out with them out of our house. I cried about it because I don't want to put my sister in a difficult situation, especially with her being pregnant and trying to enjoy a vacation. I end up telling Jane how I feel. Charles is rude and disrespectful to me, you, and Victor. I still want to spend time with you while you're in town, but I need separate time to decompress after being with Charles. I love you, but this is the boundary I need to set for this dynamic to work. She cries and says if she doesn't sleep here, she will need a break from me. I apologize to her and emphasize this is about needing a break from Charles, not Jane, both during a phone call and text. Charles calls me and it goes terribly. He talks over me, tells me he's disappointed because I'm not supporting my sister's pregnancy by not allowing him to sleep at my place. Jane is bringing life into this world. Our feelings aren't what matter. Jane is what matters right now. If we don't sleep there, we won't be seeing you. Weekend 2 starts today. I haven't heard from Jane. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I do think you could have done things differently. From the way you worded it here, it does sound like you may have uninvited her. I might have said explicitly, "You're welcome to stay here, but Charles is not." There's certainly no requirement, but given that this return stay was already planned, you might have considered allowing them to stay this time with some stipulations on Charles' behavior. This is a crappy situation since you obviously don't want to harm your relationship with your sister, but you shouldn't have to deal with her jerk husband either. OP. Sorry, there was a character limit, but I did tell my sister over the phone that she was welcome to stay and I just needed a break from Charles to decompress at home at the end of the day. She told me she doesn't want to sleep separately from him, which is understandable. Although there was a lot said on the phone with Charles where he basically implies, "This is just who I am." Seriously, why isn't anyone calling him out on his behavior? Charles, we can see and hear you. You're being rude. I was talking, please don't interrupt me. Do not talk to me in that way, it's rude. He does this because everyone lets him. Not the jerk, but this outcome is not surprising. Very few married people would be willing to sleep apart from their spouse on vacation, especially in entirely different places. Even less when one party is nearing the end of a pregnancy. Spouses like to share accommodations, and anytime you're trying to split a married couple up in terms of sleeping arrangements, there's always a very good chance they will both decide to make alternate arrangements elsewhere so that they can stay together. You're not a jerk for setting boundaries with your sister's crappy husband, but married couples often see themselves as a unit, and they may not allow you to set boundaries with only one of them while keeping the other in your life. That's your sister's choice. She's siding with her husband. She's not going to stay where he's not welcome. She's not going to hang out with people who are on bad terms with him. And it's her right to draw her own boundary with people who do not welcome her husband, as misguided as we might think that is. Hopefully in the future she will relent, but if she holds firm, you may need to decide how much Charles you are willing to tolerate to have your sister in your life. Not the jerk, but oh look, another story of a woman who settled down with a guy who treats her like crap. I used to think that one day they would finally wake up and stop picking the jerks to be with, but then I come back to my senses and realize that will never happen. Maybe stop friend-zoning the guys who are actually kind and respectful. Crazy idea, I know. Edit. Call me a nice guy all you want. Sure, I totally wear fedoras, fingerless gloves, and spend my days playing video games in my mom's basement. There's no way in heck I own a luxury apartment and have worked in commercial banking for the last 8 years. Not everyone who has a different opinion than you Reddit freaks is some basement dweller, as you'd like to believe. My husband uses the same mop water for weeks and refuses to stop. My husband only has a few household tasks. One of them that he took on is mopping the floors. He has a bucket full of mop water, maybe 3 gallons, that he will use to mop. He puts 2 or 3 cups of pine sol in the bucket and then fills it up. When he's finished mopping, he will put the mop inside the bucket and put the bucket on the porch. He uses the water until I throw it away. The water is often black when I throw it out. He will use the same water to mop up messes. If the dog pees on the floor, he mops it up and then puts the bucket of water back on the porch. This is a major source of contention between us because I think it's incredibly gross. We've gotten into screaming arguments when he has caught me throwing out the mop water. He says the water is fine because the pine sol sterilizes it and that he worked as a janitor before, and he's insulted that I think he doesn't know how to clean the floor. I cleaned a whole school for years, and you think I don't know how to clean a regular floor? I've offered to do it myself, but he sees it as an insult to his abilities. Today I stepped into the kitchen and noticed that the entire floor felt grimy and sticky. He was sitting at the table and told me, "The dog peed, so I thought I'd just do the whole floor." I asked him if he bothered to change out the black water he's been using, and he said no. This of course started a fight. I told him that he had made the floors filthy and that I, 3 months pregnant, didn't want to expose myself to whatever diseases are growing in that water. And I would be doing all the mopping from now on with Bona because we have hardwood floors. He told me he might as well not be in the house because clearly I don't respect any of his choices. He got his keys, got in the car, and drove off. He was gone for hours, came back, and isn't talking to me. I feel like I'm going crazy. Is the pine sol actually sufficient? Am I making something huge out of nothing? How am I supposed to fix this when I feel like I've tried to and it just hasn't worked? I worked in food service for 9 years, and we had to change the mop water every single day. No exceptions. Just mopped 10 minutes ago and had a spill? Get that sanitizer water running and get a fresh mop. This is absolutely not okay. It's gross and unhealthy, and if an apathetic teenager in a crappy fast food joint can do better, then so can your husband. Nope. Eventually the bacteria takes over. Putting it outside makes it worse. Honestly, I'd toss out the bucket and mop and buy a spray mop with pads. If he goes into a tirade, then it's time to rethink this relationship. And there's going to be a baby crawling around on that nasty floor soon. All this walking on eggshells and going around him to do extra work, all to avoid triggering a tantrum? I can't imagine trying to raise a kid with this dude. He's going to make it 10 times harder for her than doing it alone. I mean, it's basically toilet water if you mop up pee and then just store it to spread it around on the floor later. This is not sanitary and you are not wrong. Why does he want to save a bucket of dirty water? Also, 2 to 3 cups of pine sol? When you have a significant other who refuses to do cleaning the right way, it's a huge red flag. It shows that they are unwilling to do what is right. It shows they are stubborn and stuck in their ways. I'm sure he's the type of guy to make excuses when you look it up on Google and show him that what he's doing is wrong. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I've always done it this way. Sorry, lady, but your husband is an absolute idiot, and I hope you find someone with a few brain cells. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my wife wake our daughter up to see a bear? My wife, my kids, who are 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4, and I just spent 3 weeks at our cabin while we got some repairs done on our house. Our 10-year-old, Rose, has leukemia. A lot of the activities around the cabin are outdoors, and Rose doesn't usually have the energy for that. So one of her favorite activities has been watching the wildlife from this big window seat in the master bedroom and taking pictures of what she sees. Her goal since she started doing this was to see a bear. There are some in the area, but it's not too common to see one. She has me take her up to the window seat after dinner and usually falls asleep watching for bears. Towards the end of the 3 weeks, I had to take her to the hospital for chemo, 3.5 hours each way. That night, she fell asleep in the window seat again, and when I got up to carry her to bed, there were 2 bears close to our cabin. I called my wife over to see, and I took a picture on Rose's iPad, but my wife wanted to wake Rose up so she could see. She hadn't gotten to see a bear this trip. I told my wife she needs to rest, and that showing her the picture would be enough, but my wife still tried to wake her up. I stopped her again and got Rose in bed. The next morning, I told Rose that there were bears last night, and I showed her the pictures. She asked if I woke her up. I said yes, because I didn't want her to get upset, but my wife told Rose that I wouldn't let anybody wake her up. We did not see any more bears for the rest of the trip, and Rose has been devastated. She refuses to speak to me and deleted the pictures I took for her because apparently it doesn't count. My wife is even talking about taking Rose back to the cabin for a week to try to see a bear. I don't think it's a big deal, but my wife and Rose are still upset with me, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. My wife takes her to the zoo at least once a week. She's there for nearly every special event, including the first day they brought the bear cubs out. Update. My wife, my father-in-law, and Rosie have been at the cabin for 4 days now. I ordered stuffed animals, window decals, art sets, a kitty telescope and binoculars, a camera, and a couple chairs for her to sit outside. My wife, father-in-law, and Rosie were able to go out a lot more than when we were there with the family, and they were even able to visit a national park in the area. Between Rosie's new gear, the trips to the national park, and staying up late bear watching every night, she saw bears on more than one occasion. She's feeling much better, and they're coming home on Monday. Well, why didn't you go with her? I have to work, and we have 4 other kids. If I would have gone with her, my wife would have had to stay home. She actually managed to see them 3 times, once at the national park and twice from her window. My wife FaceTimed me so I could see her reaction, and it was adorable. I have a few more surprises waiting for her at home. My fiance told me to choose between her and my mom. My mom turned 60 this year, and she's not going to live 5 years longer. 12 years ago, she had a stroke that left her half-side paralyzed. She still lives alone and takes care of herself completely by herself. She's very resilient, and I'm incredibly proud of her, but I know that her chances of living another 5 years are very low. My fiance got, surprisingly, a promotion in the dream job she always wanted. Saying it's a gigantic opportunity would be saying that a Ferrari is just a car.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It will change her life forever. It will fulfill everything she wanted. It will make her rich. It also involves her moving countries, thousands of kilometers away. There is no way she won't accept it, and I wouldn't want her to. The moment she told me about it, I knew it was over. She asked me to come with her. I didn't even need to think about it, and I said no. It broke me apart, and it broke her apart, and I feel nothing, and simultaneously just pain. My mother has 5 years left at best, then she will pass, and just never be in my life again. For the rest of my existence until oblivion. Also, it swallows me up. I will just never get to meet her again, hear her living voice again. She will be gone forever, just gone. The clock is ticking for her, every day a bit louder, and I cannot, simply cannot move away from her and see her only once a year anymore. How could I accept that only seeing her 5 times before she stops existing? I cannot. Period. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it wasn't a hard choice at all. I hope your fiancé truly gets why you made this choice. Not that it makes it easier, but it's better that way for sure. Is there any way you can do long distance for a few years? At least try it. Why not take your mom with you? Let her see some more of the world before she goes. Today I learned that reservations are old school. I'm a night auditor in a college town and it's move-in week. That means we've been at 100% all week and are set to be over the weekend as well. 90% of the hotels are families moving their college kids in. The other 10% are regulars or business travelers smart enough to book way ahead. 2 gentlemen walk in at around 2:30 a.m. The first gentleman asks for a 2-bed room and asks how much it will cost. I ask if he has a reservation and he goes, "No, I didn't know I needed one." I apologized for the inconvenience and told him we're fully booked. He dejectedly moves away from the desk and the other gentleman behind him comes up, who had 2 reservations he made 3 months prior. As I check that gentleman in, the first guy's wife comes in. I can overhear them arguing. She's asking him why he didn't insist, and he tells her, "She said they're fully booked," whatever that means. She rolls her eyes at him. When the guest leaves, she comes to the desk.
Hey, we need a room.
I tell her we're sold out tonight. Sorry, unless you have a standing reservation, I can't help you.
Reservations? You guys still do those? That's old school.
I must have made a face because she looks instantly offended.
You seriously can't be telling me that we need make reservations still? Can't I just check into a room? I need to go online and jump through hoops first?
I reiterate, all of our rooms are sold and occupied. Walk-ins aren't unusual, no. But again, there are no vacancies. She wouldn't be able to make a reservation online because there is no space to put her.
Ugh, why is it so busy?
She asks. I tell her it's move-in week for the local college. She goes,
That's what we're here for. I'm moving my son in.
And she looks surprised. Wow, you don't say. Then she says,
Well, why did that other guy get 2 rooms? He walked in after us.
I had to explain to her that he had reserved those rooms 3 months ago.
That's not fair. We were here first. There should be a system for calling ahead and having you hold a room for us, because this is ridiculous.
Karen stops me mid-workout and demands to use the squat rack. This is becoming more and more common at the surrounding gyms, which is really annoying and a reason I've changed gyms more than once this year alone. Working out is a pillar of my everyday life, and it has been for the past 10 years, and I'm at the gym every day of the week. Now, I don't go to the gym to talk to people, make friends, or make funny videos. I go to train and go home. However, now with the new video trends, many folks want to record their exercises to post on social media. This is their business and not mine. They can do whatever they want, but I also don't think I need to stop doing my own workout to accommodate them. Last night I was doing squats on the Smith machine. I work out with headphones and I didn't notice that someone was trying to get my attention. I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder mid-squat, and only then I noticed a woman with a very annoyed expression. She barely allowed me to finish the movement to start talking, which was muffled due to headphones. Long story short, she was annoyed because I was training on the Smith machine and she wanted to record herself doing regular squats. However, she said the best spot was in front of that Smith machine. There's more than one, and she didn't want me on the frame. So she wanted me to stop my series for her to record. Now, usually if someone comes to me with a good attitude and asks if it's okay for me to stop for a series or 2 for them to record or even move machines, I would absolutely not mind and comply. This lady did nothing of the sort, being extremely arrogant and honestly extremely annoying. So I was petty and I told her to record once I was done, and I proceeded to do every single exercise I could on the same Smith machine. Squats, Smith. Hip thrust, Smith. It was petty, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I felt very vindicated seeing her annoying expression. That being said, a few people said I was a jerk for doing that, as there were other machines I could have used. Honestly, they might be right, but hey, I thought I'd ask the internet. Was I too much of a jerk here? Not the jerk. First off, who interrupts someone mid-squat? A lot of gyms have a no recording policy where I live. In my last gym, these people just got reported to the fitness manager. Not the jerk. For all those people trying to film themselves in a public place, get over yourselves. We don't care about your 1,327 followers seeing your gains. Stop disrupting public space with your ego. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have gone ahead and moved for her or not? Please let us know.
I would have started coughing all over her. It's one of the quickest ways to get people to stop messing with you, especially these days.
Boss did me wrong, so I put him out of business. This happened 12 years ago, and I'm still reaping my rewards. I worked for the company. They did 3-phase photography of families and their kids. No wedding events or anything like that. Straight studio work that was in a portable setting. Sittings booked for 10 minutes, and we were supposed to shoot 30 to 50 a day. Yes, it is as wretched of a job as it sounds. It was fast, high energy, and at times simply brutal. 1. Pre-seller. They come in 2 to 3 weeks in advance and sell a special 10 by 13 portrait and book the appointment. 2. The photographer. That's me in this instance. Comes in for about a week and takes the pictures. 3. The salesperson returns 2 weeks later with the special along with the other 6 poses I took and tries to sell you $400 worth of pictures. I was very good at what I did. The company sales average was $100 per customer per 50 customers. The more you shoot, the lower your quality because you spend less time taking care of details, and details sell pictures. My average was 175-ish per 150 to 200 customers. I was making this company a lot of money, and they consistently treated me like crap. Oh, the stories. Their business model was shoot as many sittings as you can, as fast as you can. To them, shooting 50 with a $100 average was better than shooting 35 with a $150 average, even though the profit margin was exactly the same. I never agreed with that, and boss and I went around and around about it every week. They withheld raises because I didn't have enough sittings and took my bonuses because I wasn't meeting their quotas. So I figured out how to be fast, efficient, and darn good. That's another post. So that's the background. Now the good stuff. Enter the jerk. The jerk is a pre-seller who lied to the customers, lied to the store, and would book appointments from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. even though the studio hours were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. He told every lie in the book, and I think he even added a few of his own. Want to bring your dog? Family of 15? Sure. Bring 5 change of clothes and we'll even have her do your makeup. I don't even do my own makeup. Come and get your picture taken and we will throw in a free toaster. And just to make it interesting, he would triple and quadruple book appointments, and when he ran out of those, he would sell open appointments and tell people to just come in anytime and my photographer will work with you. Ugh, just writing that makes me mad even after all these years. The biggest problem is he would waive the sitting fee or just not tell them. I was obligated to collect that $8. Every time I didn't, it came out of my check. It was a nightmare. I refused to work behind the jerk for these and 1,000 other reasons. I told boss that if they ever put me behind the jerk again, I would quit, which is exactly what happened. They knew he had been working at the store I was assigned, and they lied about it. I immediately called boss and told him this was my last week and that he needed to make arrangements to get the photography equipment at the end of the shoot. I should have walked out, but I was young and dumb. It was a 3-day shoot, and I did 316 customers by myself. That is an insane amount of sittings, and nobody was happy. Every night, the store manager had to tell my customers to leave because the store was closed. People were lined up at 9 a.m. waiting for me. I took so much mistreatment that week. After a customer threw a shoe at me and another spit on my pizza, the store security guard brought a chair over and stayed with me almost the entire time I was there. I honestly cannot remember how many people were escorted out of the store because they acted a fool in my studio. It's been over a decade, and I still have nightmares about that week. But nobody came to get the equipment, so I start making phone calls and plotting. Me. Hey, what do you want me to do with your equipment? Boss. You're going to need it next week in Florida. Me. No, because I quit. Boss, you didn't give me any notice, so I'm not accepting your resignation. I'm sending you to Florida next week. Me. I'm an independent contractor, remember? You can't make me go to Florida. This is not complicated. I quit. Boss, just go to Florida. I don't have time for this now. You can quit in 3 weeks if you can hire a replacement. And he hangs up. Nope, not going to Florida. I packed the equipment and took it home with me. The camera was a brand new Canon T2i 550D, and those were pricey back in 2010. I really didn't want to give it back, but it wasn't mine to keep. I had an idea. Boss was an absolute train wreck of a human. If he didn't want to do something, he wouldn't. If he could find someone else to do it, he would. I decided to use his own worst traits against him: avoidance and procrastination. The next thing I did was take the company credit card and go to the nearest storage unit with climate control. I rented a unit and paid for the first month, but just one. I unloaded it all, down to the last halogen light bulb. I took detailed pictures of everything and an inventory. I locked the door and walked away. At this point, there was nothing I could do but wait and hope Boss would continue to be the worthless wreck I knew him to be. Next, I called and reported the card stolen. Why? Because I knew if I didn't, that card would remain active and rent would be paid every month on time, and that just wasn't going to work for me. I cut it in half and sent it and the combination to the storage locker to Boss via FedEx, along with a hand-painted sign that said, "I quit." I also sent an email to HR telling them that I was terminating my contract and that Boss had the information and the equipment. This is probably the only sketchy thing I did. The person I emailed was out on medical leave, and I knew it. I could have sent that email to a dozen other people who worked there, but they might have paid attention to it. By the time she got back to the office, she had so many emails, she couldn't even begin to tackle them all. A month goes by and the police knock on my door. Okay, so I wasn't expecting that. The company has reported the equipment stolen and the police are there to investigate. I really thought I was going to jail. The cop that knocked on the door was fully expecting to take me away in handcuffs until I explained what was going on. I ended up taking copies of the emails to the police department as well as my copy of the contract with the storage unit. I also had a copy of the shipping label. Both my name and the company were listed on the contract. I had to make an official statement and jump through some hoops. The company had placed a monetary value of $12,000 on the studio rig, so potentially I was in a lot of trouble. Except I covered myself. The police told me I was in the clear because the storage unit had their name on the contract, their credit card was used to pay for it, and I had sent the combination and all the pertinent information to the company. I am very good at cover yourself with paper. At this point, I figure the gig is up because surely they're going to come to get this rig or send someone or something. Nope, Boss is still worthless. 2 more months go by. I get a call from the storage facility. They're about to cut the lock and auction the contents. I was so excited. I called Boss again. He dodged my calls and ignored my emails to please call me immediately. I never specifically stated what I wanted to talk to him about, and just like I was hoping he would, he ignored me. Okie dokie, I have done all that I can. And that's when it all started to come together. And then I hit a pretty good snag, but it actually worked out better in the end. In this state, if a storage unit goes up for sale, the owner cannot purchase it at auction. I didn't know that. But where there is a will, there is a way. They sent letters and called 3 more times, and then the date was set. The unit went up for auction on my birthday. My neighbor went to the sale. He bought the unit for $125. I couldn't believe it. And of course, we were in cahoots on this, but we had to make it look like we weren't. The grip on the camera mounts cost more than that, not to mention the lighting, props, and costumes, and of course, the camera. My neighbor then put an ad in the local newspaper for photography stuff, $1,000 firm, but didn't list anything specific, and oops, put the wrong number in the ad. A week later, he wanted it out of his garage, so he sold it to me for $126. He has a bill of sale from the auction. I have a bill of sale from him. It's now mine, and there's nothing the company can do about it. But they tried. I now have a fully functional photography studio, all the contacts I need to start my own business, and the skills to do it. I started calling all the stores I had worked for the last 8 years and offered them a much better deal than what the company was giving them. I did my own pre-selling, my own photography, and my own sales, except I took it a step farther. I bought a monitor and computer and let people preview their pictures and order the day of the shoot. They paid in full, and I mailed the pictures directly to them. People loved it. No high-pressure sales, no tricks. My customers were happy, and so were my stores. About 6 months after my first independent shoot, I hear from the company. I got several nasty letters from them, which I ignored. Word had gotten back to them that I was using their equipment and that I was working for someone else. I just laughed at them. They thought so little of me that it never occurred to them that it was my business. Then I got a nasty legal letter from a lawyer. It started with cease and desist, rolled into me violating the non-competitors agreement, and ended with the return of their stolen property. They had apparently not told him all of the facts. I sent him copies of everything. I waited a few weeks for a response from him and heard nothing. I finally called to find out what was going on, but no one was available to take my call. How convenient. A few days later, I got a certified letter in the mail saying, "No other legal action will be forthcoming from this office." I would have been content to just let it slide, but this whole thing ticked me off, and now I wanted revenge. I made a real effort to really get them. Little by little, I built my business and my reputation. I didn't have to do any of the nasty tricks that the jerk did. Within a year, I had stores and schools calling me. I had more work than I could handle on my own, so I took on a second photographer and a third. I actually hired 4 people out from under their noses. At the height of my business, I had 8 additional photographers and a full-time office assistant. I could have grown much larger, and in hindsight, I'm so glad I didn't. Digital photography was a huge boom to the industry, and then it backfired. I found my niche in the market just as it exploded. I ran the company completely out of 3 states. They lost all of their chain contracts to me, including the store where it all started. The jerk lost all of his stores and ended up working at a gas station. The boss ended up demoted because his district was dissolved when I sniped the contracts. The jerk actually tried to convince one of my photographers to hire him to do the pre-selling for her. By now, my name and my business name had a really good reputation. Boss left the company for good and used me as a personal reference. He was a good photographer, just a rotten manager, and I took great joy in telling the people who called me that I was legally not allowed to tell them what I thought of the man. The age of the cell phone camera pretty much destroyed traditional photography, and I closed my doors as a business in late 2017. The company closed for good in 2016, and I would like to think I had a hand in that. I'm still standing, and they are nothing but an empty building. I still have the original rig, but the camera has been replaced several times. I do senior pictures and the occasional venue shoot. Most of my photography is for restaurant menus now. People ask me if that's boring. I've never had a meatball scream, cry, or kick me, which is pretty much a daily occurrence when you work with kids. This may not be as epic as some on here, but I beat them at their own game, and that still feels pretty darn good. My Karen stepdaughter demands my late husband's estate. I, female 55, had been married to my husband, male 60, for 20 years before he passed. It was cancer. He had 2 kids from a past marriage who were in their early teens when he married me. I had a 7-year-old from an earlier relationship as well. We didn't have any more kids. I tried to treat my stepkids as my own, but they never accepted me. They were very rude and insulted me whenever they could. Since I did not work, they called me a gold digger who married their dad only for his money. The truth was, my grandparents were quite wealthy and left me a lot of money when they passed. I lived well below my means, and I chose to stay home and raise my daughter, since I could afford that. I did not need his money at all, but I didn't bother sharing this with the kids and told him not to either. I did not want them to like me just because they might gain monetarily from me. My husband, on the other hand, hated how they behaved with me. Their blatant disrespect made him not pay for their college tuition. Their mom couldn't pay for it, and they had to take loans out for it. They didn't even talk to him. Even when he got cancer, they refused to come and see him. For 3 years, we struggled with the treatment. My daughter came to visit from time to time when she could. During this time, the only person who really helped both of us was someone we were not related to at all. This girl was in her late 20s, waitressed at a cafe that we frequented. She was a single mom, taking classes at community college at night, working during the day, and raising her 2 kids. She took a liking to us, and when she learned my husband was sick, spent whatever time she could visiting him. She has stayed nights at the hospital when I needed a break and basically been the daughter that we wished for. When he passed, she helped me arrange the funeral. His kids came on the day, and all they wanted to know was about their inheritance. I felt sick. When I learned my husband had left his estate to me, whatever is left after settling his bills,
It was around $25,000. I decided to give it to the girl who helped us both so much. She tried to refuse, but I insisted she take it. She needed it, and in my opinion, deserved it more than the ungrateful kids. My daughter understands why I did not give it to his kids, but is upset I did not give anything to her either. I told her she already had money and a job. Not to mention, she will get my inheritance. This was in no way her money. But his ex-wife and kids are causing havoc over this and really upset with me. They're calling me a jerk for giving away money that they deserve. Am I the jerk? They don't deserve that money. They want it. There is a difference. I just went no contact with my parents literally 2 to 3 days ago. I know the odds are that they will cut me out of their will. I'm 100% okay with this. Being free of their toxicity is 100% worth giving up whatever money they may give me. In all honesty, I don't know how I will feel if they do leave me money in their will. Do I even want to accept it? I honestly don't know. Taking the money won't fix the damage they caused. His adult kids made choices in life, but now that he's gone, now that all of it is said and done, now they are demanding money. I would look at them and say, aren't you quite the gold diggers? You know your dad never funded things for me. I was wealthy on my own. That's why I didn't work. I didn't need the money. Not the jerk. First of all, an estate of $25,000 is very small. It's not the size of an estate that people even normally ask about or fight over. It's surprising in me that your kid and your stepkids were expecting some windfall when your husband's total net worth was $25,000. Were they under the impression that your husband had money? If your husband wanted his kids or your kids to have his estate, he would have left it to them. But he wanted you to have it, and you were well within your right and the moral high ground to gift it to someone who made an influence in your life and for whom it may be a life-changing gift. You'd be surprised how many people fight about money, even when it's a smaller amount like $25,000. $25,000 is honestly not that much at all. If my parents passed and all they had to leave me was a measly $25,000 after all these years, I wouldn't even want it. Most new cars even cost more than $25,000, so I don't know what his kids are throwing a fit about. I made it clear to my parents that unless they left me their house, cars, and retirement accounts, then I would be going no contact with them. Boomers have treated us like crap for far too long. We have to take matters into our own hands at this point. People saying $25,000 is not a lot of money. Only on Reddit, Karen. Only on Reddit. I found out after my husband passed that he had another son he had been hiding from me. My life was turned upside down last month when I was informed of my husband's passing in a work-related accident. This would, of course, be hard enough to cope with, but shortly before the funeral, a young man showed up at my house claiming to be my late husband's son. My husband didn't speak a word about him to me. He claimed to have not known about me or either of my daughters, who were 12 and 8, until he was notified of my husband's passing and found the obituary in the online version of our local paper. The young man was 18 and must have been born before I met my husband. He also claimed his own mother passed years ago and was never, to his memory, in a relationship with my husband. So, the boy's existence is not proof of infidelity on my husband's part. However, I still feel just as betrayed. My husband never breathed a word of him to me. This boy lives in the UK, where my husband sometimes worked. I live in the US. He traveled a lot in his line of work, and I can't help but wonder how many other secret kids did he have? How many times did my husband visit this kid and never even told me about it? What else was he not telling me? This boy had pictures with himself and my husband at various ages. He says he was brought up at a boarding school, and my husband visited him sometimes. Though I very much want to, I have no reason to doubt his story. The boy asks to come to the funeral. I want to say no, but I feel like I have no right. My kids see me talking to this stranger and poke their heads in to ask what's going on. Before I can stop him, the boy introduces himself as their half-brother. Now, not only do I have to figure out how to cope with all this information myself, but I also have to find some way to explain it to my kids. My 8-year-old doesn't even seem to get the full implications of her father keeping this kind of secret from all of us, but my 12-year-old is clearly upset, although she won't talk about it with me. At the funeral, the boy kind of lurked in the corner, but when lunch was served afterwards, he approached both my daughters and was playing games like tag with my 8-year-old and some of her friends who joined in. I didn't think this was right, and when I told him so, he apologized and said he did it to raise her spirits, and it's what people did for him when his mother passed to cheer him up. Something about his answer irked me, so I got the impression he was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for him and using my kids to do it. My mom and my sister came over to help me after I got the news about my husband. Of course, I talked to them about what was going on, and they were shocked. My mom brought up the point that the boy might be after money. All of our important assets were in both our names, and I'm the only beneficiary of his life insurance policy. But I was not sure what could happen if he tried to sue. I asked the boy frankly if money is what he was after, and he said, "No, I couldn't take any of your money. You have kids to take care of." It irked me the way he said that, as though I was offering money and he was trying to show how good he was by turning it down. It felt as though he expected me to give it to him anyway. I asked the boy what he wanted, and he said he wanted to get to know my kids because they're his sisters. In my opinion, they might be his sisters, but he's a stranger to them, regardless of biological relation. Apparently at the funeral, he told my 8-year-old he was going to ask me if he could take them to the aquarium, and so that got her hopes up about it before I could even make a decision. I said yes, only if my mom or sister went with them, because I wasn't about to let them go with a stranger no matter what. Over the next week, he also took them to the park, ice cream place, and the lake, with my sister as a chaperone every time. I agreed to this, and it was helpful because it gave me a chance to break down and cry to my mom without them around. When he left and my 8-year-old hugged him and told him not to go, he said, "I promise, I'll come visit again." I stepped in and said, "No, I think it would be best if you didn't come back here." He looked hurt and my 8-year-old started crying, but I was sick of him promising things without getting approval. She thinks it's a cool mystery, like from a TV show, that she has a secret brother, and she doesn't realize how disturbing it is that her father hid his existence. My sister asked me later why I told him not to come back, and I told her I think the whole thing is weird. I don't know this boy or his real intentions. He could be some kind of weirdo. My sister says I judged without ever getting to know him, and he seems like a very sweet young man. He grew up mostly without a family, and he could have been jealous that my girls got all of their father's attention, but instead he wanted to connect with them. My opinion is that even if those are his intentions and he's totally innocent, I still don't want him around my home or my kids. To me, he's just proof that my husband lied to me for years, and it makes me sick to look at him. My kids don't need this drama either, and even my 8-year-old is going to have issues once she's old enough to realize how much her dad was hiding. Me or my girls don't owe him anything. My sister says that I don't have to want him in my life, but I don't have the right to deny the girls their brother. She pointed out social workers do everything they can to avoid separating siblings because of the trauma. I said it's not the same thing because my girls have only known their brother for a week. My sister said it's also important because my girl's brother is now the only person they know of their culture. My husband was like 1/8 Hawaiian, the rest white and Asian, and so the girls and their brother are like 1/16. The boy appears to be white, and my daughters and I are black. But this boy was raised in the UK, and he isn't part of Hawaiian culture. And honestly, I think culture is something natural and not something to force because of your genetics. My girls don't live in Hawaii, they live in Oregon, so that's their culture. I don't force myself or them to participate in African culture just because of our genetics. I thought my 8-year-old would get over her brother, and she did go several weeks without asking about him. But yesterday she asked about him again. I feel bad about ever allowing them to go anywhere together and bond. I wish I'd handled the whole thing differently, and now I don't know how to explain the situation to them. My 12-year-old hasn't asked about her brother, but she has been extremely closed off since her father's passing, and I don't know how this issue might be complicating what she's feeling. I just need outside opinions to know what to do about this. I thought about maybe asking the boy about a DNA test, but I don't know what it would achieve. I don't want him in my life or my daughter's life either way, and even if the DNA test came back negative, it would only raise more questions. And I don't know if it would open up any legal troubles where now I owe the boy money from my husband's estate if it comes up positive. Not the jerk. Call me a skeptic, but get a DNA test first. Something about this entire situation sounds fishy. I wouldn't even have let my kids hang out with him. The way he phrases his answers does sound manipulative. What people did for him when his mom passed. He didn't need to convey this information to you during your husband's funeral, but he did. The way he phrases it sounds like he's trying to make you feel bad for trying to establish boundaries. And yes, it sounds like he's trying to guilt trip and gaslight you, making you feel like you're crazy and paranoid. Further, he didn't outright reject your money. He phrased it yet again in a way that he's fishing for a longer haul. He could have easily said, "No, I don't want your money." But instead, he said, "No, I couldn't take any of your money." See the difference? And the moment you let him into you and your kids' lives, he has been persistently around. Offering to take your kids out without you or any adults being present indicates the possibility he's manipulating them to get what he wants. The appropriate approach would have been to ask if you, as the parent, are fine with him taking them out. He has now heavily inserted himself in you and your kids' lives, all through your kids. You need to start asking questions. Alarm bells are ringing in my head. OP. Well, the comments alerting me to how this might be a scam attempt have opened my eyes. I've contacted a lawyer to figure out how to establish if there is truth to his story and what my legal obligations are to the boy. I'm also going to have a long talk with my sister to see if during their outings he had done any kind of prying that might have led him to learning information about my family that he could use somehow. I'm already in the process of getting therapy for my kids and myself. Edit. People have been saying a lot of nasty things about me, and I don't think I'm going to get much more productive input out of this, so this is going to be my last post on this topic. I considered taking the post down, but I decided to leave it up so people can be aware of the scammers that operate like this, that they can be so good at what they do that even hundreds of third-party outsiders will take the scammer's side. In hindsight, I can't believe I didn't see it, and I can't believe I ever let such a person step foot in my home or even speak to my kids. Apparently, the goal was not to ask for money right away. It was to get close to me and my kids and ask me for money later on for a fake emergency. Other commenters elaborated how it works. If my daughter asks about her brother again, I'll have to tell her that she was tricked. I don't want to do that to her unless I'm completely sure, so I most likely will be asking the boy for a DNA test, birth certificate, etc. However, not until I have the chance to speak to a lawyer. Update. I was wrong and I was the jerk. My husband's son was telling the truth. My husband's name wasn't on his birth certificate, but the DNA test did show he was related to my kids. He also had more photos, cards, and voicemails, tons of evidence to prove that my husband did keep regular contact with him. Apparently, the son's grandparents were his legal guardians. My husband occasionally gave them cash as under-the-table child support. I did notice that husband sometimes made large withdrawals when he went overseas. He said it was because shops there don't take his card. I wanted to believe it was a scam because I thought it made more sense than husband having lied. Talking to my husband's son a bit more revealed he had been lying to him too. Apparently, he told him he was a cowboy and a pro football player. Then when son Googled him, he switched to saying he was a gangster who had done prison time. Needless to say, none of this is remotely true. I can't fathom what could possess him to behave this way. Lying to me, lying to his kid, not raising his kid. I'm questioning everything husband ever told me and wondering if it was me who passed. Would he have abandoned our kids as well? I feel horrible for the boy. I'm in therapy and working on ways to cope and forgive my husband for my own peace of mind. She's helped me work out why I reacted to husband's son the way I did. I thought he was manipulating me and my kids, but what I actually sensed was that he wanted something from me and my kids. I felt like me and my daughters were not in a place to give anything emotionally or financially, so I recoiled from him. But that doesn't mean that he's a threat. My kids went to therapy as well. 12-year-old has weekly sessions. However, my 8-year-old hated it, so I pulled her out of it for now. Many people have shared their own stories of being separated from biological relationships and the effect that it had on them. I don't understand it because genes don't mean much to me. However, I don't have to understand to respect it. I personally don't feel like I'm in any place to have any kind of relationship with husband's son, and I don't think he wants one with me. He now appears scared of me, which I do feel bad about. I wasn't trying to hurt him or scare him, but I will allow him to visit sometimes if my daughters want to see him. Sister agreed to continue to supervise. As far as money goes, the lawyer advised me that there aren't many assets that son is entitled to because they were in both my and my husband's name, except for a few investment accounts that were only in my husband's name. Thankfully, not where the majority of our savings were. I know people think I'm an evil jerk for caring about money, but I need it to feed, clothe, and educate my kids. I just don't think I can do it. I didn't choose to be a stepmother. I'm sure the boy doesn't really want me as one either. I apparently scared him when I told him not to come back, and when we talked on Zoom since then, he acted nervous and flinchy, like he was afraid I was about to get him or something. I feel bad about that as it wasn't my intention. I don't think I can do this. I feel like the meeting is a disaster waiting to happen. Like it's only a matter of time before I lose my temper and ruin the meeting that my kids may have been looking forward to. I just have this feeling of dread. I don't know if anyone can help. Maybe it's a long shot. I have therapy on Thursday, and I hope it'll help me sort things out. I just feel like I can't do this. It's humiliating to even share this problem with anyone. And even if I try to talk things out with one of the few people I do trust, it's always, think about your kids, think about your husband's son, put yourself in their shoes. People even show more sympathy for my husband than me. Maybe it was a coping mechanism for his childhood issues. Maybe he had a good reason. I'm just burnt out on putting everyone else first and trying to fill the role of both parents for my kids right now. I feel like it's only so long before I snap, and the rope just got a lot thinner. Update. To let you know how the visit went. He stayed for 1.5 weeks. Before he came over, we talked a few times on Zoom, with me, him, and his grandparents. I told him my sister was not going to be able to supervise, and I was frank about how apprehensive I was feeling about being the one to supervise. I don't think he was thrilled about me supervising either. He knew and felt comfortable with my sister, but not me, so the feeling was mutual. But we decided to go ahead with the visit anyway. We made a few changes in what they had previously planned when my sister was going to supervise, but not many. We also discussed contingency plans for if something went wrong and one of us needed space. Just knowing that I would have an out if I needed it was a huge relief and helped immensely. Overall, things went relatively well. He and I were civil. I got uncomfortable, but not to the point where I couldn't cope. He and my daughters got along well, with the exception of one incident when my girls got into a spat with each other and he tried to intervene, which made them both mad at him. But it was quickly resolved after each girl had their time stewing about it. I will say he was very good with both of them, but especially my 8-year-old, who's been having a very difficult time lately. She's been struggling a lot with school and trying to find the right treatment for multiple diagnoses. She's been acting out and has been very frustrated. I love her and I do my best, but she is difficult at times. But with her brother, it's like they're kindred spirits or something. He was a real trooper, acting out scenes with her from the movie Encanto over and over. I realized it's probably really good for her to have an adult in her life who doesn't want anything from her except to spend time with her. Before the boy left, I gave him a thank you card expressing this to him and that I do genuinely hope he chooses to stay involved. Overall, it was a positive thing. I'm glad we went ahead with the visit, and thank you to those of you who left supportive comments. Update. My husband's son came for another visit last month. It didn't go well. He brought his girlfriend. She was polite, but not very interested in my daughters. I think my 9-year-old was a bit jealous that she had to share her brother's attention with the girlfriend and was a bit mopey and prone to many meltdowns during that time. So it wasn't the most fun time ever for anyone. Unfortunately, my husband's son and his girlfriend are invited to Thanksgiving at my parents' house. We'll see how that goes. I at least feel more accepting of him being around now. Last year, it was hard to even look at him. I know none of this is his fault, but it was hard to see him as his own person and not just a reminder that my husband lied. And this year, I felt a little better. Am I the jerk for forcing my brother to buy me a new engagement ring? I'm 26 male and proposing to my girlfriend who's 24 on our 4-year anniversary, September 30th. I've been planning this for about a month and I picked the ring a couple weeks ago. The one I got was on sale, so I managed to get it at a surprisingly low price. Last weekend, I told my brother, who's 33, about my plans. I showed him the ring. He informed me that he was proposing to his girlfriend as well. The next day, my brother came to my apartment while my girlfriend was out. He asked me if he could borrow my ring to propose to his girlfriend. At first, I thought he was joking, but no. His plan was to propose to his girlfriend, explain he was using my ring as a placeholder, and then take her to pick her own ring later. His reasoning was that he didn't want to spend too much money right now in case she didn't say yes. I had never heard of placeholder rings, so I said no, and the conversation moved on. On Tuesday, he proposed to his girlfriend with my ring. He had taken it before leaving my apartment. I got distracted at work and didn't notice it was gone until his fiancée sent a picture of herself wearing the ring to our family group chat. I called him to ask about the ring, and he immediately apologized and said he'd keep his promise and give it back to me. But at this point, my girlfriend had seen it and his fiancée had posted about it on social media, so it was pointless for me to propose using the same ring. We fought about it, and he confessed that while he had told his fiancée the ring was a placeholder, he didn't tell her where he'd gotten it from. I felt more angry and betrayed about him going behind my back and taking the ring after I said no than the fact that he stole it. I also know his fiancée enough to know she wouldn't like to learn her engagement ring had been stolen from me, so I told my brother I'd tell her the truth if he didn't buy me a new engagement ring. He fought against it for a few hours, but finally gave up and agreed. We went to a different jewelry store yesterday and I picked a new ring. I managed to stay in the price range, but the new one was still $100 more expensive. My brother bought the ring, but is still accusing me of being inconsiderate and childish. He is insistent that he would have given the ring back had I given him the opportunity, and I didn't need to threaten him to spend so much money on me. He's now refusing to talk to me. I don't know how to feel about this anymore. I'd usually talk to my brother about these things, and it's surreal that he's the one I'm fighting. I can't tell my fiance, and many of our friends overlap. The only other person who knows about this is our mom, who's divided. She thinks what my brother did was wrong, and I'm right to be upset with him, but that I didn't have to stoop as low as I did by threatening his relationship. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. What's wrong with him? He stole your ring. Does he have some illness or impairment that could excuse this, or is he just the worst brother in the world? OP. He's actually never done anything like this before. We usually have a great relationship. He was the first person I wanted to tell when I first started dating my girlfriend, and that I'm proposing to her now. Not the jerk. Your brother created this entire situation and is 100% at fault. If it were me, I'd make all 4 parties sit down and explain everything. You might as well rip the band-aid off now because it's going to come out sooner or later. It will be much worse if it's later. Some like it hot. I had taken an R&D internship for a food company over the summer in a town in Iowa. For housing accommodations, the company had set me up in the local college dorm that was previously a retirement home, so it basically had individual rooms and bathrooms, but one large commercial kitchen. It was summer, and the school didn't have a summer program, but allowed 2 fall students to move in at the beginning of the summer. One was rarely there, but the other was constantly in the building and oftentimes had multiple friends over. Given the kitchen setup, we all stored our food there, and it's pretty no-brainer that you shouldn't take from others, but immediately I had various food items going missing or being consumed regularly. Soda, empty boxes of cereal put back on the shelf, etc. I initially posted a sign on the fridge to not eat others' food and also confronted both about having food going missing after the sign was up, but it didn't stop whomever from stealing my food, especially when I'd head out of town for the weekends. After complaining about the situation to my manager during my job, they helped formulate the perfect pro-revenge. Given I was doing R&D work on food products, I was responsible for getting various ingredient samples to use for new recipes. My manager suggested I get some capsaicin extracts for my research, even though we weren't doing anything in that realm for flavor profiles. Well, I found a company that had various Scoville unit extracts, and I asked for a variety to see what worked best for our applications. Well, they delivered some with small 2-ounce bottles of 50,000, 100,000, and 250,000 Scoville extracts. I ended up putting the 250,000 in a travel-size spray bottle, mixed with some water to help as a carrier, and wearing gloves and a mask, borrowed from work, I doctored the common food items being stolen with a liberal spraying of my mixture, mainly cereal, chips, crackers, jug of milk, and the lip and top of a few soda cans. For the snacks, I actually put some into a separate bag and left them open to dry before mixing back into the original packaging. I did this in a different dorm room in my wing, as I know well enough how potent this can be in enclosed spaces. I did this right before another trip out of town, and when I returned, I found some of the chips and cereal and milk was missing, plus 2 of the 3 soda cans I had doctored. I never got to see the result, and no one ever said anything, but none of my food went missing for the remaining month of my stay. I hope the experience was enlightening for them, and they still remember the time they played with fire. Shallow Karen begs me for my Snapchat after I lost a ton of weight. Me, 27 male, and Annie, 27 female, had been best friends since junior high school. We had different social circles, even though we tried to include each other. Annie was part of the popular crowd and has kept these same friends until today. I grew up severely overweight. I was heavy all throughout high school and college. I was lucky enough to have Annie as my friend, so I was always included in things. I was always the tag-along. Annie's friends mostly acted like I wasn't there. I'm still around her friends on a regular basis now. About 6 months ago, I made a lifestyle change. I was tired of being overweight and getting turned down because of it. I've now lost about 75 pounds and I feel incredible. Annie has been my biggest supporter and was my gym buddy. I haven't seen her friends since January because I was in gym mode. But Annie decided to host a party at her new place. I was invited, but I didn't want to go. I explained to her how I didn't want to have a connection with people that knew me when I was overweight. I wanted a clean slate, but she insisted, so I came. So I posted a gym selfie, totally unlike me, and one of Annie's friends, Claire, slides into my DMs and said, "Wow, you look so different. Congrats. How did you do it?" I explained a few of my tips, and then she asked for my Snapchat. I sent the laughing emoji and never responded again. I show up to Annie's, and all of a sudden, I feel like the new kid in school. All of her friends who previously never even acknowledged me wanted to talk now. It really upset me. One said, "Oh, P, I had no idea you knew so much about cooking." I said, "You would if you had taken the time to get to know me the last decade," and walked off to go meet Annie. As I'm talking to Annie, the friend that DM'd me walks up. She says how great I looked and asked why I never gave her my Snapchat. I said, because I don't deal with shallow people. And she knew me for a decade and didn't want my Snap, so that's why I laughed. She excused herself and Annie followed her. I waited outside and Annie came back furious, saying she talked to her friends and they all felt embarrassed. I said they should, because they are shallow. Annie got all offended and said I'm being a jerk. I said she is far too good of a person to have these types of friends and she should be embarrassed. She asked what I meant. I said she has shallow friends who treated her best friend like a ghost for a decade, but now I'm supposed to give them my attention? That she's a bad friend to me to have to keep these friends. She started crying and said something about how I used to have the best personality, but now I'm a jerk. I said, maybe I am, but better than being a part of a shallow friend group, and I left the party. Annie's sister, who I am close with, called me today, saying that Annie is upset and felt like she lost her best friend, but that I said some pretty messed up stuff and I need to apologize. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. In this scenario, you are 1. Being really rude, 2. Acting smug and cool because you've lost some weight, which I doubt the younger you would approve of, and most importantly, 3. Doing a disservice to the person who's been a very good friend to you for much of your life, and essentially telling her it's okay for you to act like a jerk at her party because her friends, people she presumably likes, all suck. Sorry, mate. Good luck on your fitness journey, and I hope you can do as much work on your interior as you have on your exterior. But her friends do suck, and why is it rude to call it out? He was asked a question and he gave an answer. He doesn't sound smug at all. He sounds like he grew into the confidence to not feel like he was better tagging along with the in crowd than being outside of it. Props. The only problem with that interpretation is that he went to his friend's party at her invitation, then proceeded to go off on the other people she invited. They are her friends. If he doesn't want them to be his, fine. But he owes Annie the courtesy of not dragging her into a wholesale, let alone implying she's responsible for it. He answered the question honestly. He didn't give her his Snap because she was shallow. When they said they didn't know anything about him, he pointed out that they could. I'm shocked that people see this as going off, but to me, it's a perfectly reasonable reaction to being treated like a human being by people who have actively ignored you. That they all gave him these opportunities just shows a lack of self-awareness. When I'm around people I was a jerk to in high school or who were a jerk to me, I just keep it to small talk and get out of the conversation ASAP. She insisted he go, and he could have been fairer to her, I agree. But equally, she cannot be entirely unaware of how they have treated him over the years. She never noticed that she was the only one who invited him, that she was the only one who spoke to him? I don't buy it. They probably talked smack behind his back too. For her to act as if he was completely in the wrong is frankly pretty callous. My wife is cheating on me with her gaming friend. I, 26 male, and my wife, female 25, have been married for just under 2 years. We've been together for over 5 years, and we have a daughter together who's turning 1 next month. I started to see a change in our relationship about a month after our daughter was born when I went back to work. She became increasingly distant with me and more withdrawn. Any sorts of affection stopped, and I just felt like I was worthless to her. At the same time, she was spending an increasing amount of time on her maternity leave gaming with a group of online friends that she's known for a few years, most of which are male. I've never had a problem with this, as I know the people in this group, but I felt this group of friends was being put first before me. And at the same time, there was one person in particular from the group that she was talking to a lot of the time, which I felt uncomfortable about. When I confronted her the first time about how I felt, she had admitted she lost feelings for me after our daughter was born, but that she wanted to make things work and that there was nothing going on with anyone from this group and that I should trust her. However, fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I felt like things had not been improving. It was at this point that I checked her messages and found that she was having an emotional affair with someone from the group. I confronted her about this and she admitted to it. She said that she had lost feelings for me, as she said before, and then she had gained feelings for this other person and that she let it get out of control.
She said she wants to fix our relationship, as she's worried that she will lose me and everything that we worked for, and that she was so sorry for doing this to me. I'm not convinced that she's telling me the truth, but I'm willing to try and rebuild our relationship for the sake of our daughter and the fact that I do still love her. However, I've told her that the only way I'm going to be able to rebuild any form of trust is if she stops all contact with this group of friends indefinitely and to not speak to them again. She thinks I'm not being fair about this. So tell me, am I the jerk for asking her to do this for me? She doesn't want to cut contact with the person she admits she got romantic feelings for? Were she sincere about wanting to fix and rebuild your relationship, that's a natural first step that she should take on her own accord. You should not even need to ask her for it. Not the jerk. She's staying with you because you are security. Don't let her use you like that. Not the jerk. She asked what it would take and you answered. Plus, wanting to continue contact means that she's putting herself in a position where she knows there is potential to revert to the affair, which means she is doing something that is putting the recovery of your relationship at risk, rather than doing everything possible to make it successful again. And that's even if she wants to stop the affair at all, which is an open question. Not the jerk, but okay. To play the devil's advocate, cheating is the worst thing in a relationship in my humble opinion. But N have to say there are details missing here. Yeah, N have to say that you can shut up. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Never stay with someone who's cheating on you.
Would I be the jerk for losing every wrestling match I'm forced to attend on purpose? I'm 15, male. School has recently restarted all of the sports programs after almost a year of no or limited activity. Before that, I was part of the swim team, one of the smaller groups at our school. I love swimming, and it really sucked that we couldn't go for such a long time. With the restart, the school also made a new system. Every student writes down 3 different after-school activities in order of interest. So first choice is your favorite, second is your second favorite, and so on. The teachers in charge of the groups then pick the students. First pick is students who already belong to the groups before lockdown. Second pick is then random, and third pick is if there are still places left open in the group. Since I was part of the swim team before and put it down as my first choice, I would basically be guaranteed to get in. But now the results are out and I was placed in wrestling. I never even put that on my list at all, so I went to the teacher and asked what's going on. Turns out the teacher in charge of wrestling specifically requested me for whatever reason. Turns out my dad knows the wrestling teacher quite well and asked for me to be placed on the team. I know my dad hates that I prefer swimming. He always says it's not a real sport and that I should do some sport that actually gives me muscles. He constantly tells me I'm too skinny for a guy and has made several attempts to make me go to the gym to work out. I asked the teachers if I can still switch teams, but they say no. I also cannot just avoid the wrestling club because after-school activities are mandatory. So last night I had a huge fight with my dad. I called him a jerk for forcing me to go to wrestling and that I'll just forfeit every single match I have to attend. He said that if I do that, he'll take away all my electronics and I will only be allowed to leave the house for school and nothing else. My mom says I should have the right to choose whatever sport I want, but now that I'm on the wrestling team, I should still do my best. Also, to not call my dad names. But I don't want to participate in something I have zero interest in. I was forced into it. Also, I was really looking forward to swimming again and meeting my teammates. Edit. Next week, I will talk to more teachers, guidance teacher, and also write to the principal. Guess I'll also try to talk to my mom again and maybe convince her. Worst case, I'll just go through with it and put in zero effort if no one listens to me. Edit 2. I talked to my mom again without my dad nearby. She still thinks I should give wrestling a try, but if I really want to change, she will support me. So next week, I'll go and talk first to my swim coach and the wrestling coach and hopefully get it resolved. Otherwise, I'll go further to the principal. I can post an update next week and tell you guys how things worked out. Some of you suggested I go to the newspaper or something, but I really don't feel comfortable blowing things up like that. Slandering the school would backfire 100%. I also got a few questions about the rule of afternoon activities being mandatory. So we have to do activities for 2 years total, but we're free to choose when we do them during high school. We can choose between a lot of club activities offered by the school, not just sports, but all kinds of activities. Music, art, reading, gardening, or even game design. School club activities are always free, and if you require financial assistance for like an instrument or something, I think you can get financial aid, but I don't really know the details. Additionally, if we attend a club or regular activity outside of school, we can also get credits for that. Just need to work it out with the teachers. We also don't get grades or anything. It's just noted on our final report. I also don't really know what happens if you don't complete them. Update. First things first, I'm back on the swim team for now. Today was really weird and awkward. First opportunity, I went to talk with my swim coach and explain the whole situation and that I'm not willing to stay on the wrestling team. He was pretty mad at my dad as well as the wrestling coach, so he took me to the secretary, explained the whole thing, and asked her to change the list. She was in turn quite mad because apparently the whole system is a big mess. I'm not even remotely the only student who was misplaced. So then the secretary called in my homeroom teacher. There was a lot of accusation. I was just standing there feeling awkward. Really weird to see 3 adults being mad at each other. In the end, I was basically told by all 3 to just ignore the whole thing and that I can just join the swim team if I want to. I figured that was it until the end of the school day. Then the wrestling coach had me come to his office. He gave me a long talk about how disappointed he is, how he had high hopes for me, blah blah blah. I told him I really don't care and that he was a jerk for just ignoring what I wanted to do. To sum up, wrestling coach is mad at me, homeroom teacher is mad at me for complaining, swim coach mad at the school, and my dad is probably gonna freak out when he hears that I won't wrestle. Oh well. Update. Mom told dad about the switch as he came home from work. He has so far completely ignored me. Not a single word. Actually, a nice outcome, I guess. Update. Last night, I had a talk with my dad and my mom. It was awkward. Dad apologized for the wrestling thing, but also said he wants me to grow up strong so that I can defend myself. He says swimming won't help me when I get in trouble. I was really confused about that because I never have been bullied or gotten in trouble or anything like that. Mom later told me that my dad used to get bullied a lot in high school, so he started working out in college and that helped him a lot. I guess he wanted me to do the same. It's really weird at home at the moment, but I guess he is not a complete jerk. Still kind of, but I don't know. Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband over bread? Whenever I buy something out of the ordinary with a specific dinner purpose in mind, my husband manages to find it and eat it. I'm sure if I were planning to bake something and bought yeast, I would come home to find him completely distended and surrounded in empty yeast packets. I usually stick to the same grocery list every week, and I feel like if I buy something out of the ordinary that is clearly an ingredient for a larger meal, he could at least ask before devouring it. Last night, I bought 2 baguettes, which I have only ever purchased to make French bread pizza for him and our kids. I bought these at 11 p.m., and they were not even here 12 hours when I saw them on the counter, with the first 6 inches ripped off of each loaf, scanned the house, and saw my husband chewing. If it had been 1 loaf, okay. If he had used a knife, maybe. But the fact that he didn't ask if they were going to be for dinner and then ripped off the top of them, this was just unforgivable. He insists I should tell him when I buy things if they are for a specific purpose. I say that I'm already taking on the burden of grocery shopping and cooking, and the least that he can do is ask. Am I the jerk here? Edit. 1. We have 2 snack cabinets that he's free to snack from, not to mention whatever's in the fridge. 2. The bread was in a cabinet that is mostly ingredients. 3. There was regular sandwich bread for the taking that was unharmed. 4. For those who have stated that this is raccoon-like behavior, it really does feel like I'm running a wildlife rehab operation, but the only patient is a 37-year-old software programmer. 5. To the dude who said that my husband is going to leave me for another woman who will give him peace, tell me you're still bitter about how things ended with Sheila without telling me you're still bitter about how things ended with Sheila. Update. I shared this with my husband, and he accepts his jerk status and apologized. We're going to work on communicating better, and he's going to work on his weaponized incompetence. He wants you to know he occasionally cooks rice and beans, and lately has been making us late-night quesadillas when the kids are asleep. But most of all, I was just hungry. My husband. He was hungry, all right. Not the jerk. OP shouldn't have to label every food item that comes into the house, especially since this is a pattern. The husband should learn to ask first. It's not hard to say, hey, are you saving these baguettes for something? Because if you're not, I want to tear 6 inches off each one of them and leave the mangled remains on the counter. It's like he's marking his territory. You're not the jerk. May I suggest that whenever he does this, you simply refuse to cook unless he goes to the store and replaces what he ate? Also, hang a sign on the kitchen. All food in the kitchen is for a specific purpose. Ask before mindlessly devouring. He won't stop until he realizes the problems his actions are causing you. You have to make this his problem. Am I the jerk for refusing to take part in sibling moments during my dad's wedding?
Title sounds weird, I'll explain. So my dad is engaged to a woman, Ruth. Ruth has an almost 5-year-old daughter, Lacey. Their wedding is planned for January, and ever since Ruth and Lacey moved in with us, Dad and I, Lacey and I have been forced to share a room because it's a 2-bedroom house. Lacey has become obsessed with me. She thinks I'm the coolest person, and she always wants to be around me. So Ruth came up with this idea of having sibling moments during the wedding where we embrace each other as true sisters for the first time. She mentioned it to Lacey before either her or my dad mentioned it to me, so Lacey was really excited and happy. But I'm not comfortable with the idea. I don't want to hold her during a family unity ceremony. I don't want to do a special sister dance with her where the spotlight is on us, and I don't want to make promises that I'm not sure I would keep. The promises were already printed out by Ruth, and she showed me what I would need to say. It's basically, I will always answer her calls, always call her my sister from this day forward, that I will be there for her and chase away the bullies and show her how to do things. It's not that I'm opposed to us being closer at all, but I won't be going out of my way to come home from college just to be there with Lacey. I might not even stay at my dad's when I do because I don't want to share a room with Lacey. I already hate doing it now. I expressed that I didn't want to do these things during the wedding, and Ruth was furious. My dad was like, "It would be so sweet and would be super cute to look back on when watching the wedding videos." Ruth was saying how excited Lacey now is and how I would crush her heart and soul and stomp on them if I refused to do it. She even claimed Lacey was saying how excited she was to have me as a sister forever and that she wants me to be her protector. Not sure I buy a 4-year-old saying that, but whatever. Ever since I said I didn't want to do those things, I've been under a lot of pressure to give in, and Ruth has been accusing me of rejecting Lacey and refusing to have anything to do with her. That's not what this is, but I don't love Lacey right now, and I don't know that I will be playing the big sister role. It might be more like cousins, because honestly, I'll be moving out soon as I'm 18 to get a little more space, but this whole thing is starting to get to me. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but Ruth is a major one. 1. Lacey should not have been told about this unless OP had agreed to it. 2. Forcing a relationship is a bad idea. 3. Making a public spectacle of a forced relationship is an even worse idea. And 4. Ruth needs to stop weaponizing Lacey to try to convince OP to go along with it. Ruth needs to back off and let any relationship develop naturally. Lacey is acting age appropriate and being a nuisance to OP. Hopefully she'll grow out of that. But OP should not be forced to undertake these wedding activities. It's not OP's wedding, so this arrangement wasn't OP's choice, and Ruth and Dad should stop acting as if this is a major union by OP and Lacey. It's not. It's Ruth and Dad's union. Lacey and OP are just affected by it, but they don't have a say in it. Am I the jerk for telling my family my daughter's name is none of their business? I, 25 female, had my first baby with my husband, who's 25 male. Our daughter is named Calla to honor my grandma. She loved calla lilies and always thought Calla would make a pretty name. My husband and I wholeheartedly agree with that, and the name seemed perfect for our daughter. The choice to name her Calla instead of Elizabeth, my grandma's actual name, was a controversial one among my family. You see, there are pretty much only 3 or 4 names for each gender circulating within my family. Everyone is named after everyone and always has the exact same first name and usually last. It's a real pain and not something my husband or I wanted to keep up with. My grandma even hated it. My grandpa was a very domineering man and he chose to name their kids names that already existed in his family. She had zero say and she hated it. I remember complaining to her one day that I hated sharing my name with 4 other family members I saw all the time. She told me every person deserves their own name, and she never liked how our family had to all have the same names. This is when I also learned how hard my grandpa was on her and how he basically treated her horribly and made decisions for her when they were married, which was pretty much pressured by both their families. She was the one who told me about honor names being more special if you don't use the actual name, but something about the person or what they loved. So maybe a virtue name based on a virtue for the loved one or their favorite flower or plant, place they loved, or their birth month or stone. We lost her 2 years ago and it was awful. My husband adored her too, and she adopted him as a grandkid when we were kids. He and I were best friends before we became boyfriend-girlfriend. For us both, it made sense to honor her, and doing it how we felt was better, but also how she felt was better. My family have really pushed the idea that we were wrong to name her something weird that is not Elizabeth,
and they say I should not say we honored Grandma. I never asked for their opinions, but they gave them and would not stop giving them and insulting the choice we made. So I snapped and told them my daughter's name is none of their business, so they should keep their unwanted opinions to themselves. They told me there was no need to be rude, and I should be willing to hear honest feedback from people who love us. They claim naming is very much a family business in my family, and I should also know and respect that. Am I the jerk? So not the jerk. Kala is a beautiful name, and you should be able to honor the grandmother you loved any way you want to. She's your daughter, not your family's, and she's the one who has to live with the name, so good on you for not letting them push this bizarre naming is a family business narrative on you. Not the jerk. It's a beautiful name, and the background is beautiful too. It sounds like your grandma would be so happy with this honor. You're the jerk. Let's be honest, the name is weird. I would never name my baby something like that, and your family has the right to check you on it. Kala would be okay for a cat or a dog, but not a baby. Stop normalizing goofy names for kids. So you're claiming I defrauded the company by booking an extra 3 minutes? No problem. I worked for a water company for 25 years and was one of their most productive repair crews. That is, until the new manager, let's call him Mr. Jerk, started. We had a monthly rotation where you're on call for 1 week in 4 for emergency repairs out of hours. On the day in question, I started work at 7:30 a.m. on a Friday and finished work at 3:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, so a pretty long shift. I get to work Tuesday morning and get called into the office by Mr. Jerk, and I'm informed that according to my vehicle tracker, I'd left the yard at 3:12 a.m. and not 3:15 a.m., which is an attempt to defraud the company. As you can imagine, I was absolutely fuming at this level of BS. I told him that at the time I was covered in mud and sweat and just wanted to get home after completing a monster shift for the company, and he was genuinely making a crap storm over 3 minutes. He said he was making me aware that I could be fired for it. Cue malicious compliance. I said that if we're going to be this petty, you can take me off the emergency contact list for extra coverage, and I won't be starting 20 minutes early each day either. I'll now be clocking in at exactly 7:30 a.m., and I shall be heading out at exactly 5:30 p.m. No deviation whatsoever. And you can explain to your bosses why productivity is down and you're struggling to get coverage for emergencies. We'll then see how important your 3 minutes are when they're costing the company money. Little did I realize at the time, but the guy's job was bonus related and linked to our productivity, which tanked after that because all the other gangs followed my lead, except the brown-nosed gangs obviously. 3 weeks go by with an absolute crap show and customer service complaints about their work not being carried out in a timely manner. My productivity dropped from 7 jobs per day down to 4. And Mr. Jerk gets called by his bosses to try and explain what's going on. He tried to spin some BS story that I'd turned all the guys against him for no reason and that this was the result. Little did he know that I'd actually trained his boss when he first started with the company 15 years before and wanted to come out and find out what we do and experience how hard the job is. He surprised me by working a full month on the repair crews before going back to the office. Anyhow, the boss calls me in to find out what's really going on, so I explained how he had used the tracker to monitor what time I'd left the yard and that I'd guesstimated my finish time and overestimated by 3 minutes because I was absolutely exhausted after working a long shift. Conclusion: manager was let go for misuse of the tracking system, as it's only supposed to be for emergencies and not for monitoring, and we had our on-call system reviewed to cut the hours we were having to work. When will new managers learn to not mess with veteran employees? Probably never. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor I'm not taking or picking up her son from school anymore? I, 43 female, am close friends with my neighbor, 42 female, and we both have kids that attend the same high school. We don't live far from the school, but it's not really walking distance. My neighbor has work early in the morning, and there's no one home when her son has to go to school, so I've always let him ride with me and my son. As for picking him up, my son has football practice directly after school, so I don't need to pick him up. However, my neighbor's son doesn't have any practices, so I find myself going to just pick him up often. His dad can pick him up, but his dad also works a lot and goes on business trips almost every other week, so again, it's mostly just me. Earlier this week, my neighbor was off work and I asked her if she minded taking my son to school with hers since I had a work call that morning and I had to take it. She said no, which kind of had me taken aback since I figured she'd just do it. I asked her why, and she told me,
"You're home. You can take him."
I was honestly just speechless, and so I took my son that day and she took hers. I called her later that day and told her I thought it was pretty rude that she wouldn't take my son when I take hers every single day. She told me that her son doesn't have any other option while mine does. I told her that she should show some appreciation for me because if it weren't for me, her son would be walking 3 miles to and from school every day. She still kept repeating the same thing, that I'm home so I can take my son, and I told her if that's how she feels, I'm not taking her son anymore. She screamed at me, but I just hung up. I stuck to my words, and yesterday I didn't take him to school, so he had to walk. He ended up being late, and my neighbor texted me an angry message about how I'm ruining her son's attendance. My husband noticed the text and asked me what it was about. I told him what happened, and he told me that although our neighbor was being a pain, I shouldn't just refuse to take her son because it's not his fault and it's too far to be walking. Now I don't know if I'm wrong or what to do. I feel like it's reasonable to not want to take him anymore since my neighbor doesn't value what I've done for him. But I also see my husband's point of view that it isn't her son's fault, and 3 miles is a pretty long distance to walk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It really sucks for the kid, but that's a result of his parents' actions, not yours. I might change my mind if the kid was really apologetic about how his mom acted. Did he ever express his thanks for all that you've done for him in regards to the rides? If so, maybe you should keep taking him, as he's not aping his parents' behavior. OP. He's a good kid. He always says thank you after we arrive to the school and I drop him off, so it does make me feel a little more guilty. He hasn't said anything about the recent event, but I haven't seen him since it happened, so I don't know if he would or not. You're not the jerk, but honestly, if I liked the kid, I'd still drive him in the morning, but not pick him up anymore, and I'd tell him why. Am I the jerk for leaving my sick husband to spend time with friends? Context. I'm 31 with 2 sons, a full-time 12-hour shift worker, and I'm in a full-time doctorate program. My husband is therefore the primary caregiver many nights when I'm working. We have full-time daycare during the day, and he works from home. The other night, we had a date night planned. We were going to go out to dinner, then had plans to go to a bonfire with friends. We got a sitter, I got all done up. Dinner started great, but hit a sour note when my husband made the comment that he was disappointed we weren't doing something more exciting. I took it to heart because I was excited for the night we had planned, so I was moody and quiet. We were still in a tiff heading back home to change for the bonfire. When it came time to meet our friends, they said they were finishing dinner and having a drink or two at a nearby restaurant and asked us to join. My husband said he'd rather take the time to take a nap, then he'd meet us for the bonfire after. I did say I'd prefer he come with, but he declined. So I went, had one drink, then came back to get him for the bonfire. He had texted while I was out and said that he had thrown up, but still planned to go with me to the bonfire. I got back to pick him up and asked if he still felt up to going to the bonfire, and he said no. I asked if he wanted me to pick up the kids from the sitter early and get them to bed so he didn't have to while I was out with our friends. His response was, "I don't care. I don't really want to go get them." So I did go pick them up and brought them back and got them to bed. He was still distant, so I left to follow through with the original plans. I was out for 2.5 hours and got home before midnight. I took care of the kids for him to attend a golf tournament with his 2 guy friends for 9 hours the following day. When he got back from golfing, he expressed frustration that I had left him that night, stating that he'd never leave me when I was sick and that the point of the night wasn't to go see friends, it was to spend time together. I explained that I work non-stop, and to me, getting out of the house, out of routine, and having time to laugh and joke with friends was important. I explained that I would have rather spent the time with him, but he never, at the time, indicated that he wanted the time together. He wasn't feeling great and said at the time that he just wanted to go to bed. I had texted him several positive and caring messages while I was out, and I got no response. He encouraged me to make a post on Am I the Jerk because he insists that no good spouse would leave their sick husband to spend time with friends when the plan was to spend the night together, saying that I ditched him. I said he should have expressed to me that the time together was important to him and not been cold towards me, expecting me to abandon our previously made plans and sit at home again, then cover for his golf outing with friends for 9 hours the following day. Not the jerk, but your husband sure is for trying to turn the argument around on you. Why don't you point out how he ditched you for 9 hours of golfing with his friends even though he felt bad the night before? That sure was a fast stomach bug.
Not the jerk. Not so sick he would cancel golf the next day, it seems. Throwing up is an odd one. Usually a stomach bug lasts more than one night. Even mild food poisoning would leave him too wobbly to go golf the next day. Did he drink too much? Not the jerk. So he wanted you to stay home and what? Watch him sleep? Is that his idea of quality time? New neighbor is demanding I cut down my peach tree. I, 46 male, have an apple tree in my backyard and a peach tree in my front yard. I'm currently living in my parents' house with my wife, who's 46. My mother and father planted them. They passed and we decided to plant more. I only trim them when the branches get too big. They're mostly for the wildlife in the nearby woods. The deer love to come and eat the fruit. I don't spray them with any pesticides as they aren't for human consumption. I work during the week and don't get home until the evening. I haven't had any issues with the neighbors as the house is mostly in the countryside and surrounded by woods. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor moved into the house next door. I haven't had any interaction with them until now. I was not aware that the neighbor was coming over and grabbing fruit from my peach tree. I got home yesterday and the neighbor was standing on my porch. She comes storming over to my car and says the peaches made her and her son sick. I told her that the fruit was mostly for decoration and for the wildlife. She starts screaming at me and threatens to call the cops unless I take the trees down. I told her no, I'm not going to take the trees down. My wife suggested going out to the grocery store and buying her some peaches just to keep the peace. Not the jerk. Let her call the police, and if they show up, explain to them that she was stealing your organic stone fruit. Definitely don't buy her anything. That could be construed as liability. OP should contact the police to report the interaction regardless. This woman had the audacity to come onto your property and steal from you, then complain that they got sick from the fruit that they stole. Considering her angry reaction, she may try and cut the trees down herself. Keep your guard up, OP. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Tell her to go ahead and tell the cops. It would save you a call to report the trespasser entering your property and taking your fruit. What a loon. Do not buy her peaches to keep the peace. That's goofy. Tell her to stay off your property to keep the peace. Throw a bottle of Pepto at her kid to keep the peace too. Am I the jerk for feeding my dog table scraps from a dinner my boyfriend made for me? I, 24 female, have been dating Jay, 28 male, for 4 months. He's handsome, smart, funny, well-educated, has an awesome job, and he's a sweetheart. Sunday, he had a whole day planned for us. We were going to walk a nature trail and then go back to his place for dinner he was making. I was so excited because it was going to be the first time I'd be at his house. Since we were hiking, he said I could bring my dog, Shelby, with us. He made us a roast and some vegetables for dinner. I finished my plate before Jay did and took it to the kitchen. There was still about half the roast left, and it was close to Shelby's dinner time, so I took half of the roast and some still raw vegetables from the fridge to put on a plate for Shelby. I was carrying the plate to the back door with Shelby to feed her outside, and Jay asked me what I was doing. I told him I was feeding Shelby. Jay said something like, "Well, that's not dog food." Jay knows I mainly feed Shelby a raw diet. I opened the door to put the plate down for Shelby, and Jay got up, took the plate away from her, went to the kitchen, and came back with it wrapped up in tinfoil and told me to leave. His excuse was that he made dinner for me and him, not me, him, and my dog, and that I should have asked before I helped myself since he would have used his leftovers. I did leave, but not before telling him that he made that meal for us, so I could do with some of it as I pleased, and he knew darn well how I feed Shelby. I tried talking to my friend about it later that night, but she said Jay was right to be upset, but this friend has never really approved of how I treat my own dog, so I feel like she was probably a bit biased and the wrong person to ask. Am I the jerk for just feeding my dog like I normally would? Clarification: she does not get restaurant food daily. I eat out maybe 4 times a month. If what I eat is dog safe, or if the restaurant makes food for dogs on request, then I bring some home for her. Shelby's daily meals are a bit of brown rice, raw vegetables, and ground chicken hearts and beef livers. The hearts and livers are boiled just enough to kill bacteria, and that's all with the approval of Shelby's vet. I asked Jay how he prepared the roast so I could know if it was safe to give her. That's also why I got her fresh, unused vegetables from the fridge. Update: I accept that I'm the jerk for what I said and did to Jay. Some of these responses were harsh, but I see now how and why I was entitled. Thanks to people that respond to the actual issue.
Others going on about her diet. Thanks for the concern, but I came here to ask about Jay, not get into a debate about dog food. Shelby's been on her diet for 6 years and is a healthy and active pup. That's all I and my vet need to know. As for Jay, I apologized to him, and he did accept my apology, but he broke it off. He said it was the last straw for him over me doing things without asking first. He's talked to me about taking things off his plate or his drink without asking before. I've tried to do better, but keep slipping up. I didn't realize I was that bad about it, so I'm going to work on myself for the next guy. For people that said not going to his place for 4 months was a red flag, that was my decision that he respected. I don't want to go to someone's house or let them know where I live within the first few months of dating and getting to know each other. Yes, you're the jerk. Your now ex-boyfriend made a special meal for you. You took a large hunk of that special meal and gave it to your dog. Not only that, but you did so knowing it would upset him. You should have brought dog food to feed Shelby. You should not have fed Shelby with people food, and you should particularly not have fed your dog with the special dinner your now ex-boyfriend had prepared for you. It is wholly irrelevant that Jay knows you mainly feed Shelby a raw diet. Edit. Also, the title of your post is misleading. Table scraps are what's left over on your plate after you finish eating. They are not a quarter of the roast your boyfriend prepared. You're the jerk. A quarter of a roast is not table scraps. How is the fact that you mainly feed your dog a raw diet at all relevant? Also, holy entitlement, Batman. Add, you made the dinner for me, so I can do with it as I please. By that logic, it would have been perfectly acceptable to flush it down the toilet. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex-boyfriend? Please let us know. Some people just have no social awareness whatsoever. My former crush married my brother and thought I'd be okay with it. I, 25 male, used to have the biggest crush on my childhood friend, Emily, who's 26 female. As a teen, I wasn't very assertive and a little awkward, so I never made a move and just hoped that one day Emily would realize that I was the guy for her. The only person who I openly admitted my crush, although it was kind of obvious, to was my brother, Liam, 28 male. He was much more assertive and confident than I was, and had plenty of girlfriends, so I went to him for advice about Emily. Given the situation at the time, you can imagine my surprise when I caught Liam and Emily hooking up. I know that she technically was never my girlfriend, but it still sucked and I did feel betrayed. Turns out they hooked up at a party once and liked the encounter so much that they kept meeting up to do this when no one else was around. I felt completely sick and basically just distanced myself from Emily after that, which could be really awkward because we had a lot of classes together and we had the same shift at the part-time job we had, a job that Emily frequently depended on me to give her rides to. I just wanted to remove Emily from my life completely. But during the summer of our senior year, she and Liam sat me and my parents down and explained that Emily had gotten pregnant and they were planning on keeping the baby. My parents weren't happy, while I just got up and locked myself in my room. All I could think was, well, crap, now she's never going to go away. I purposefully transferred to an out-of-state college so I wouldn't be home as much and lied about getting stuck in traffic when I missed Emily and Liam's wedding, and I showed no interest in my niece, Daisy, who's 8, although I still make the effort to be polite when I'm around them. Recently, Emily's father passed, and she's really going through it because despite him not being around, she always desired a relationship. When we were kids, I remember all those times I was a shoulder for Emily to cry on whenever she felt sad about her dad, and I guess she was longing for that type of comfort from me and kept reaching out. One day I relented, and I let her vent, but I maintained a silent and formal demeanor on the matter. After spending about an hour crying, I offered Emily some water, and then she asked me why I was being so cold, how I know how much she needed a friend right now. I calmly yet firmly told her that we were just kids then, and that if she wants that level of emotional intimacy, then she needs to go to my brother, her husband, because I stopped being her comfort person a long time ago. Emily cried even more, left, and has managed to send Liam, my parents, Emily's mom, and from mutual friends to call me up and tell me I'm heartless and sad for being so spiteful. I can honestly say that I am now over Emily, but that doesn't mean I'm willing to be as close to her as I used to. So, am I the jerk? ETA. Had to step away, and after looking at the comments and DMs, I just wanted to be clear about some things. 1. Did I exhibit some nice guy traits as a teenager? Yes. As an adult, I now realize that Emily doesn't owe me a romantic relationship. 2. I was more angry at my brother than I was at Emily because, he was my brother and he knew. 3. I don't see how me not taking an active role in the life of a kid that I didn't make is me punishing someone. I say hello and I give gifts on Christmas and holidays. 4. Again, Emily is married, so I find it odd that she would seek out someone who isn't her husband for emotional support. 5. Yes, I did give my condolences when I found out about Emily's father because it was the polite thing to do. Then she started trying to call me to talk about it. 6. Emily and I haven't had meaningful contact since high school, partly because she was busy getting ready to be a mom, and I was hurt and trying to get over her. 7. No, Liam and I aren't close anymore either. ETA 2. 1. Yes, I have a girlfriend, and from what I can tell, we're both very happy. 2. Yes, my girlfriend knows about my former crush on Emily. 3. Also, in spite of everything, I did learn to be more forthcoming with my feelings, which is why I told Emily that I can't be her comfort person. Although I will admit that there could have been a better way and better timing to communicate that. You had a crush in high school on a girl, but never asked her out. Somebody else did, and she married them. It's a decade later, and you still ignore her kid, who is literally your niece, because you're salty about it. Dude, this isn't healthy. Please get help. I have to put you're the jerk, but this is beyond am I the jerk. You've spent 9 years being so bitter. That's really sad for you. I don't think you're the jerk for telling Emily you can't be that person for her, but you're definitely the jerk for spending so much time being angry and obstinate. Don't spend the rest of your life like this. It will only bring more of the same. Fiancé is demanding I put her name on my house. She's still my fiancé right now, but the argument we're having is that once we're married, she wants her name on the house deed. Years ago, I bought several acres as soon as I could afford it. Back then, it was part of a ranch surrounded by other ranches. The owner needed money, so he parceled out this section and he sold it to me. I built a small house on it, and I've lived here ever since. Since it was originally part of a ranch, I did enough legally to keep it classified as a ranch, so the property tax is extremely low. Over the years, companies started to move to the neighboring big city and land prices really started going up. Almost all of the ranchers sold their lands to developers, so now there are huge houses surrounding mine. They start from $500,000 and they go to several million. None of them sit on even an acre of land. My house is clearly the worst house around, and I have no doubt it's bringing the value of the nearby houses down. That all happened before I met and even dated my fiancé. Now that we're engaged, we're talking seriously about our finances, and the only sticking point is the house. She wants her name on the deed once we're married because we'll be sharing our lives. Alternatively, she wants me to sell the house and we purchase a house together. I don't find either options attractive. In our state, whatever we bring to the marriage, we take out. Since I will be bringing the house into the marriage, I can leave with it should things not work out. If I put her name on it, then she'll get half. If I sell the house, there's no way I'll be able to afford anything that's even close to what I have now. Not to mention, our property tax will be several times higher. Then there's the drive time. My house is 30 minutes away from my work and 40 minutes from hers. House prices have gone up so much that we'll have to move at least an hour away from our jobs. Like I said, we agreed with or compromised on everything else. This one issue is the only sticking point, and it's becoming a big one. So much so that she brought her family into it. This weekend, her father took me out to dinner to have a man-to-man talk with me. He told me that if we're going to join our lives, we have to join everything. He expects me to do the right thing if I want to join their family. So now it's her entire family on one side and me by myself on the other. Am I wrong to want to keep the house I built by myself to myself? Edit. Neither of us are rich. I bought the land at a very low price, but now it's worth 10 times as much. Even if I offer to sell half of it to her at its current value, there's no way she can afford it. That's why if we buy a house together, we'll have to move far away from here and our jobs in order to get one we can both afford. In all, I spent about $200,000 to buy the land and build the house. Everything is paid off, and I pay the extremely low taxes every year. The tax assessment on my property is about $2 million. I don't know anything about refinancing, but at our salary level, I doubt we would qualify. In fact, we've spoken to a real estate agent, and with a 20% down, our salary qualifies us for a $300,000 house. The property tax on a $300,000 house is many times the current tax I pay now. I'm comfortable with us living in my house and paying all the taxes and maintenance by myself.
Many are asking about my compromise and pointing out her lack of financial security. My compromise is that we live in my house and I'll pay for all of the taxes, bills, and maintenance. Based on our conversation with the real estate agent, if we buy a $300,000 house, her half of the mortgage would be about $1,300, not including her half of the property tax and down payment. I pointed out to her that if I pay for everything towards my current house, she would be saving at least $15,600 a year over the 30 years on the mortgage alone. That doesn't include the money she would be saving, not paying the down payment and property tax. In my mind, that would give her plenty of financial freedom and security. Also, if I sell the land, I don't want to buy any new house outright with that money. The reason we went to see a real estate agent is that if we buy a house together, I want it to be something we can both afford. Mortgage, down payment, taxes. I would put any money that I make off this sale into the retirement account. That's the main reason why I haven't sold my land despite many developers begging me to. Yes, some actually begged me. I view it as my retirement investment. You're not wrong, but neither is she. You have to find a compromise. That said, she made a huge mistake by bringing her family into it and having her father personally discuss the issue with you. She showed that she doesn't regard you as an equal partner and that she believes in bullying you into getting what she wants. The only acceptable solution here would be to consult a financial advisor for options and to discuss this between you two to find a solution. Her discussing this with her family was a mistake. Her father discussing this directly with you is a deal-breaker type of mistake. Neither she nor he seemed to understand how much of a massive overstep that was. Would you think it's okay that your in-laws weigh in on your childbearing decisions? One thought with regard to a solution is to have a legal document drawn up that requires you to pay her half of the net value from month of marriage to month of transfer. She deserves something for living there as her home for 20 years if that's what happens. Since she didn't invest the money in the first place, I see your point of the current value solely being yours and not hers, but from the point of marriage on, she will be investing in the property. That makes it collectively both of yours. Have an appraisal done and you should be good to go. Bear in mind, I think you have a larger issue than just this property ownership. Not the jerk. The biggest red flag is how she's dealing with this. Instead of working it out with you, she's going to her mommy and daddy and sending her flying monkeys to deal with it. This is how every issue is going to be dealt with. Every disagreement is going to be her whole family against you every time. I don't think any of them have your best interests or even your well-being at heart, and I have no doubt that if the roles were reversed, you'd be having dinner with her father explaining how you need to do the right thing and not expect half. Not saying break up with her, just pointing out serious red flags. The fact is, if she isn't planning on breaking up, she wouldn't need to demand half. She's planning for her future post-divorce life. You should do the same. Not the jerk. Your house is a premarital asset, protected as such. Hire a lawyer to draft a prenup. Do not put her name on the deed. She didn't contribute anything to it, and her dad has no business getting involved. Tell him that, using his own analogy, that you should be on their deed and bank accounts too. You'll regret it when she divorces you and takes half the value of your home. Well, what do you think? Should OP put his fiance's name on his house or not? Please let us know.
It always amazes me how some people feel entitled to things that they didn't work for. It just makes me mad.
Well, if they didn't exist, we wouldn't have half the stories we read, Karen. Final update. Am I the jerk for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex, despite her having cancer as a teen? I'm 25, female. My stepsister is 23. My father married her mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together most of our lives and we're a family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job. The money went towards her medical bills, and so I could drive her to appointments. I didn't go to dances, and any fun activities I did needed to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished. And I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex, we'll call him Ben, when I'm a junior. We fall in love, blah blah blah. He and I move in together when we graduate, so we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious until July, when I walked into my room and I saw him and her hooking up. I broke it off, tears were shed, he moved out, etc. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up.
She told me that she and Ben were in love and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking for the money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house, telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teen, she never learned proper social etiquette and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of the time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well, by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter and they should understand my point of view, but they're adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship and I do feel betrayed, but Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me, that she hooked up with Ben knowing he and I were in a long-term committed relationship and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now, no one in my immediate family is talking to me and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm a jerk and that I'm selfish. Update. I got in touch with my sister and asked her to meet up again at a park. No bill involved. I asked her if she was pregnant and she told me the truth. She said she wanted us to still be in each other's lives and that she wanted me to be in her baby's life. Someone on Reddit mentioned that she may ask me to be the godmother, and that person was correct. But as many of you pointed out, if I didn't cut her off, I'd just become her bank and daycare employee. So I told her I could no longer be in her life, and I left her crying on a park bench, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I emailed my parents and told them how betrayed I felt and that I'd be cutting off contact with them. To my stepmom's credit, she apologized. She explained that she never thought my sister would live to have kids and that she let her emotions over that get the better of her. Understandable. My dad said nothing, which is honestly what sucked the worst about all of this. Ben tried messaging me from a burner account for the first time since the breakup, but I blocked him without reading it. I didn't go nuclear and post this story to Facebook as some suggested, but I sent an email to the extended family members who I care about. I explained the situation and how I'd be distancing myself from my family. Some have made it an us versus them situation, and as much as I appreciate the support, feeling like I'm in some valiant battle just makes me more tired. So I haven't been talking to much of anyone in my family. I feel lonely and crappy, but I think I made the right decision. Update. Since I found out about the pregnancy, he's tried to get in touch with me 6 times through email, text, and burner accounts, has tried to get mutual friends to talk to me for him, has showed up to my place once. The latter was the only time I humored him. He told me he was sorry, he loves me, he doesn't want to be with my stepsister, and he wants to get back together with me. I told him, tough. He made his bed, now he gets to lay in it with her. I haven't dated much since July because of my life's implosion, but in November, a friend from college messaged me out of the blue. We hadn't talked in a long time. He, 27, male, referred to as X2 for the rest of this post, and X1 were good friends, but had a falling out over something fantasy football related the year after we graduated, and I stopped talking to him out of solidarity or whatever. Anyhow, we go on a date, we click. We go on a few more dates. We become exclusive in early December. I was feeling really hopeful about this until this morning. I was supposed to meet X2 at a New Year's party last night. He got there before I left the house and texted me saying that X1 was at the party and asked whether I still wanted to come. I declined and went to another friend's house, and I have a pretty good time there. I tried calling X2 at midnight, but he didn't pick up. I didn't think much about it. Anyhow, I go to bed late, and when I wake up this morning, I have a message from X2 saying we're done. I couldn't even respond because he had blocked me everywhere. I talked to a friend who was at the party the exes were at last night, and he said the two of them had spent a good chunk of time chatting with each other, but he didn't know what they were talking about. I'm not close with anyone else who was at the party, so I don't really have anyone else to ask. It was just a 2-month relationship. I'm sad, but I'm okay. But the paranoid part of my mind is really concerned that X1 said something that resulted in X2 becoming X2. X2 has made it abundantly apparent that he doesn't want to talk to me again, and I don't want to push that boundary, but I'm so confused. I could contact X1, but I get the feeling that will open a floodgate of drama. I could also try talking to other mutual friends to see if they've heard anything, but I also don't really want to spread this as a rumor if it isn't true.
I don't know, I'm at a loss. Any advice here? I'm spiraling, thinking that my ex is going to try to ruin every relationship I have for the rest of my life. Update. Turns out he met someone at the New Year's party and hooked up with her. Instead of telling me, he just blocked me everywhere and sent a lackey to message me a few weeks later with the real story and a weak apology. I want to be angry, and maybe part of me is, but as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking, what if it's me? What if I'm just not lovable? What if it's never going to happen for me? Dad didn't approve of my career choice, so I got promoted and took his money. I've worked for the same restaurant chain since I was legally allowed to work at 16. At first, it was just a part-time job to make money while in high school. At 18, I ended up transferring to a location a few hours away where I was going to college, and I got promoted to supervisor. After a semester, I ended up dropping out of school due to the effects it was having on my mental health. I've never been very motivated by money, just want to pay my bills and have a simple life with good friends and family nearby. So I decided to stick with this company and continue to work my way up until I could manage my own location. Ever since I dropped out of college though, my dad took every opportunity to try and persuade me to do something more serious with my life. He's always been very motivated by money, so it's hard for him to understand why I don't feel the same way. Which I could understand to some extent. But after 2 years of every single conversation with my dad ending in an argument over my career choice, it had heavily impacted our relationship. It's very demanding being constantly reminded that you're wasting your life or not being responsible, even though I was in my own apartment with my own car at just 18 years old. We didn't have a healthy relationship to begin with, so this added disagreement just made me even more resentful. So one day I finally had the opportunity to move out of state where a lot of my extended family lived, along with being promoted to assistant manager at this new location. When I told my dad this, he begged me to look for another job. He said he was embarrassed by my profession and wished he could post about my accomplishments like my siblings. He ended up offering me $2,000 if I found a job that would pay me $14 an hour or more. Generous, yes, but I'd rather have a dad who supports me, or at least doesn't belittle me, you know? Anyway, I texted the manager I had been in contact with about my transfer to ask if we could discuss my pay. I convinced her to increase the offer from $13.75 to $14.25. I told my dad I had gotten an offer for more than $14 and asked for the $2,000 as it was time for me to put down my deposit and first month's rent for my new apartment. He said he would eventually, but that technically he never clarified when he would pay me. He had plenty of money, but was always stingy with it. I told him I'd just ask my grandma for a loan since he wasn't following through, and I'd use his money to pay her back eventually. Of course, he didn't want our family to know that he was being a jerk, so he sent me the money. Afterwards, he asked me about my new job, to which I said, "I'm not getting a new job, I'm just getting a raise." I could hear the steam coming out of his ears over the phone. He started yelling and demanding I send back the money, but I told him, "Well, you're right, you never clarified when you'd have to pay up, but you also never clarified that the wage I needed had to come from a different job." I hung up and kept the money. We didn't talk for a while and still hardly talk now. Edit. A lot of you seem very concerned about the wage, which I understand as I didn't clarify when or where this took place. This was about 8 years ago, and for the area, $14.25 for assistant manager was a decent wage. Not great, but paid my bills and allowed me to save as well. As for my current profession, I took a temporary leave of absence to help my mom care for my stepdad, who's currently in physical rehabilitation. I'll be returning to work in October, and don't worry, I'm a manager now, and I make about twice as much as I did as assistant manager 8 years ago. Might not feel like success to others, but my bills are paid. I have a good savings account, and I've met some of my best friends at this job, so I'm happy. Lastly, as I stated in one of my comments, my dad was neglectful when I was growing up, so no, I do not regret taking his money and damaging our relationship, as it was already beyond recovery for me. Edit 2. I should have worded the grandma part differently. To clarify, I planned on moving to be near my extended family before my dad even offered me the deal. I had the money for the deposit and rent. When I said I reached out because it was time for me to pay the deposit, I only meant that's what initiated the phone call. Obviously, I'd rather use the $2,000 than my own savings. I wasn't actually going to ask my grandma for a loan because I didn't need to. I only said that because I knew my dad didn't want his mom to know he went back on his word, and I was right. Now, for everyone assuming my dad paid for my expenses, I worked under the table job since I was in middle school because I was responsible for purchasing all of my food, clothes, and hygiene products. He provided a roof over my head, and that's about it. The only money he has ever given me is that $2,000, which he tried to refuse to give me even before he knew I was keeping the same job. It's all about control, and anyone else with a narcissistic parent will understand. My main takeaway is that pay is way too low. Having to ask to get over $14 an hour as an assistant manager? That's a sorry state. I'm sorry your dad's a jerk. He should have been proud of you for pulling that off on him. Man, OP, you suck. I'll probably get downvoted into oblivion, but here goes. Your entire post is centered on yourself. You display no humility or awareness of others, and you are boastful about several things that make me cringe. You say your relationship wasn't healthy to begin with, but that's pretty standard when you're a teenager. You call him belittling without any supporting events to back it up, and you try to paint him as unsupportive for wanting you to get a different job, even going so far as to financially incentivize it with a cash bonus if you get a job that increases your hourly pay. You talk about dropping out of college because of the effects on your mental health? Like what? Stress? You think it gets easier away from school? Not saying that college is the right decision for you, but dropping out is the first in a line of several short-sighted and immature decisions you admit to. You seem proud of having your own place and your own car at 18. While those are responsibilities, having them does not make you responsible. If your car is on a lease and you can barely afford your apartment, that wouldn't be a responsible circumstance. If you owned both and spent all your free time partying or playing video games or posting on Reddit, still not responsible. You say you aren't financially motivated like him, which probably is something you feel proud about. However, you were financially motivated enough by a $2,000 bonus to do something about it. So if it hasn't occurred to you, you're actually wrong about your not like him belief. You negotiated a raise from your boss to get that bonus. I hope you're aware that raise comes out to $20 more per week, and that's before taxes. Assuming a typical tax situation, you conned your dad and mistreated that relationship for about $16 a week. Congrats. You get a supersized meal deal at a fast food place for dinner one extra time. You suggested and threatened to go to your grandma for a loan. Leaving aside the fact that you needed financial help, because $14.25 an hour ain't exactly responsible and independent money, you were going to use a grandparent's generosity. And even if that was only a tactic, you were manipulating your dad into giving you money. What a selfish and petulant choice. You say he has plenty of money, but was always stingy with it. Guess what? Your description of him makes it seem like he works for it, not you. Your sense of entitlement is bonkers. It's disgusting. Am I the jerk for calling my daughter a private school snob? My daughter, Ella, who's 26, is a doctor. She works very hard and is very talented. She spent most of her life with her mother, but took up a position at a hospital near me, and so she moved in with me. She doesn't own a car at the moment, but I've insured her to drive mine so she can use it to get to work. Ella worked a lot of continuous 12-hour shifts and finally got a day off today. She's pretty exhausted, but had an errand to run. She ordered a new pair of designer trainers, but neither of us were at home when they arrived, so they were left at a delivery center nearby for her to collect. There's a bus stop about 5 minutes walk from my house, and that bus stops right outside the delivery center. It's about a 20-minute journey. Ella asked if she could borrow the car to pick up the shoes. I said no. I only use the car to get to work, if I'm carrying a lot of things. I don't use the car for anywhere that's walking distance or a short journey on public transport. Ella got upset and argued that she's been on her feet all day for several days and is too tired. She then said that she's not the sort of person who uses public transport. Her mother and their family are extremely well off. Ella went to a very prestigious private school. Unfortunately, they also have certain attitudes towards people not as fortunate, one of which is that public transport is used by unsuccessful people. When she said that about not being the sort of person who uses it, I said that she needs to get that snooby private school attitude out of her head if she wants to get anywhere in life. She lost it on me and stormed off, but did end up going on the bus to get the shoes. While she was gone, Ella's mother called me, shouting at me for making our daughter's life difficult and accusing me of trying to hold her back, etc. She said I should show that I care, that she's worked so hard at the hospital. I accept that I shouldn't have said the private school comment, but Ella isn't so tired she can't brave a 5-minute walk to the bus stop. I don't want her to be reliant on the car when there are other ways to get where she needs to go. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. Her for the not the sort of person who uses public transport comment, and you for not allowing her to take the car after a 12-hour shift. Is it an environmental thing or a cost thing with you? Calling 50-50 on this one. Because given someone just worked a 12-hour shift at a hospital helping others, you don't really get to dictate how tired they are and justify it off your personal metric of tiredness. If someone said they just finished 12 hours at a hospital, I'd be more inclined to just make their life easier. You're the jerk. That's an awful way to speak to your own kid. You're pretty clear that you blame her mother for these attitudes, but you didn't bother doing much about bringing her up properly yourself with a better attitude to less wealthy people, so, you know. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know.
Dude, just let her use the car, bro. Like, what are cars for?
My new Karen neighbor is demanding I cut down plants in my yard. A family that has kids recently moved into the house next door. The border between our yards, mostly on my side, has a ton of poison ivy. I'm extremely sensitive to it, so I haven't tried to control it except when it starts to grow too much into my yard. Even when I do remove it, I have to suit up and wash everything thoroughly, and I still somehow end up with a rash. One of the parents came to my door last week to ask me to remove the poison ivy because their kids have been getting rashes when they play in that part of the yard. I said that I couldn't do that because of my sensitivity, but that they could just get it removed on their side, and as long as their kids stayed in their own yard, it wouldn't be an issue. They said that even if they did that, it would grow back into their yard from my side, and that I could pay a company to remove it if I wouldn't do it myself. I said that I would only agree to it if they paid for all of it. They refused and said that they would be looking into local laws about nuisance plants. We're not on speaking terms anymore. Am I really the jerk here? It's their problem, so why should I have to pay for it? They could just teach their kids to avoid poison ivy like I do. I could understand if I had planted it intentionally, but poison ivy is a native plant that was here before I was, and it's an important food source for bees and birds. Quite frankly, I'm grateful for it, because it's been keeping their loud kids away from my yard who were really annoying me whenever I was out in my garden. It sounds like the poison ivy border between your properties is a nuisance to both you and your neighbors, and you are all making the situation needlessly complicated. Why not just hire a company to remove the plant and then split the cost? Edit. Oh, I see that the real reason you're letting this poisonous plant continue to grow and encroach on your neighbor's property is so that their kids will not be able to play in that section of their own yard. You are intentionally keeping a poisonous plant around that's harmful to both you and your neighbors so that they can't access that part of their property. How completely selfish. You're the jerk. Info. Why aren't you two just paying half each? It's clearly a nuisance to both of you. I'm a little bothered on OP's behalf that the parent's response was to put the financial responsibility on OP. The verbiage used in the post, at least, comes across that the parent has deemed OP responsible for the removal, whether it's professional or not. If OP doesn't care about it and appreciates it as both a contributor to the ecosystem and as a natural fence line, then it seems more reasonable for the parents to remove it on their side and put up either a competing bush or a hedge plant, or put in garden edging of some kind, or even a proper fence. A lot of people are crying, "Think of the kids," but that's really a point of education. Don't play near potentially harmful areas. There isn't going to be an easy answer to everything in life, nor is everyone going to be willing to compromise. Additionally, if a kid is allergic to pollen or a particular tree, there's no exception that the neighborhood has to accommodate that. Trees are not poison ivy, but it's a loose connection given plants are the primary topic. As far as looking into nuisance laws for plants, my unprofessional assumption is that if OP isn't cultivating the plant and it's not an invasive species, it probably won't hold much weight as an argument. Then again, tree law is nuts, so I could be very incorrect there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the neighbor? Please let us know.
Roundup makes a special product just for poison ivy. It works like a charm. Spray the whole area and it'll be gone in a week.
Am I the jerk for making my chronically late friend miss her seminar? My friend, 25 female, is constantly late for everything. Be it work-related or fun activities, she will always be at least 15 to 20 minutes late. She doesn't have a car, and so oftentimes I, 25 male, will have to pick her up from her house. I work at a university, and she's a PhD student there, and her place is along the way from me. Last time I offered her a ride to work, she ended up being 20 minutes late after I've already arrived at her place. Because of that, I ended up being late for work. She's always very apologetic about her lateness, but never changes. This week, she was supposed to give a seminar at the university, which is a crucial part of her PhD program. She asked me if I could give her a ride to work that day. I told her sure, but that I was picking her up at 8 a.m. and she must be there at exactly 8 a.m. and not a minute later.
She chuckled, but I told her I wasn't joking, and she promised that she would be there. The morning of her seminar, I drove to her place, and I got there at 7:55 and texted her that I was here, and she told me that she would be out in just a minute. At 8 o'clock, there was no indication that she would come out, and she didn't text anything. So at 8:01, I drove off. At around 8:20, she called me asking where I was. I told her I was at work and that I wasn't joking when I told her that she had to be ready right that minute. She started screaming and crying over the phone and told me that she was having a hard time that morning, couldn't be ready right at 8 a.m. She then begged me to come back to pick her up, as her seminar is at 9 a.m. and she needed to be at the school before then. I could have done it quick enough to pick her up and drop her off without affecting my work, but I decided I didn't want to do that, and I told her that I wouldn't. She was crying and hyperventilating at that point and said she had promised to never be late for anything else again, and re-emphasized that this seminar was crucial for her PhD and that she absolutely cannot miss it without severe consequence. I responded, "Oh well," and hung up. I then went about my day at work normally. I feel like I could have went back and picked her up in this scenario since it wouldn't have been detrimental to me, and at the same time, this was something very important for her. On the other hand, I feel like this should be a wake-up call for her chronic lateness. Not the jerk. You warned her. She also had 40 minutes to make other arrangements, even after all her procrastination. Could you have been kinder? Yes. Could you have reminded her about your time restrictions? Yes. Could you have given her a final notice with an "I'm going to drive away at 8 o'clock"? Yes. Is it rude to be continually late? Yes. Is she an adult? Yes. Is it your problem to manage her time? No. Still not the jerk. When you said you left at 8:01, I was thinking you were the jerk. But when she didn't call you until 8:20, I laughed and thought, oh no, definitely not the jerk. Your friend needs to learn that punctuality in the professional world is important. Also, her chronic lateness should not be affecting you getting to work on time. Not the jerk. I had a friend like this. I was left at the movies, restaurants, train stations. She was never ever on time, always apologetic, etc. Finally, I just started leaving after 15 minutes, which even that seemed a long time when you're waiting at a restaurant. I was also told after I left the first time, I'll never be late again, I promise. But she was. And then the friendship faded away, which was okay by me. My stomach was always in knots, and I was always frustrated and angry by the time she showed up that I finally realized I wasn't enjoying myself. Clearly, your friend showed up at 8:20 and expected you to idly wait for her like her chauffeur. It's so disrespectful of your time. Frankly, I'd be okay with not having this friend. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know.
I don't mind at all when people show up late. It shows me that our time together is not important to them, and I don't need to keep them in my life.
You want me to coerce an inspector after someone else did the work? This happened years ago. I had just started working as an independent electrician, and one day I received a call from a new customer. He was one of those people that flips homes in lower income neighborhoods. I'll call him Todd, but honestly, I've forgotten what his name is. Todd asked me to meet him at a vacant house he recently bought to give him an estimate for a full rewiring job. He was 30 minutes late, so I was already unimpressed with him. Upon entering the house, which was right after a rainstorm had passed through, we found an inch of water covering the hardwood floors. There was water pouring out of small holes in the column on the front porch. Everything was soaked. Instead of showing me around, Todd called his business partner and brother and spent the next 20 minutes going off on him for not fixing the roof. I'm standing around and listening to his man-baby rage on full display. The whole time I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to work for this guy. His fuse was way too short and his anger was out of hand. I gave him a price, which admittedly was the "I don't want to do this job" price, and didn't hear back from him until months later. Todd called me later that year. He explained that he had found an electrician from 3 states away and had paid the electrician with ceramic tiles instead of cash. The problem now? Well, he needed an inspection from the city electrical inspector. I agreed to meet with the inspector for him, which I would bill him for. I went back to the house about 20 minutes before the inspector showed up and saw numerous issues. When the inspector arrived, we walked through together. Every issue I saw, the inspector also saw. He pointed them out, and every time I agreed with him that the work was not up to code. This inspector kept looking at me with a puzzled expression. After we did a complete walkthrough, I finally explained to the inspector that I didn't do any of the work and was hired to get him to pass the inspection. He asked me if I thought he should, and I told him absolutely not. I got paid for my time, I got paid to repair all the violations, and I formed a strong relationship with that inspector, who was always lenient with me on all of my future jobs. Karen demands I charge my son rent to live in a house that he partially owns. My oldest son, who's 24, is not my wife's biological kid. He was my son with my late wife. My late wife and I bought a 3-bedroom house when we got married. When I remarried, my current wife moved into this house with me, but I never put her name on the deed. The house was only in my name. My wife and I ended up having several kids and needing to move into a bigger house. When we bought our new home, she wanted me to sell the old one. I said no, that this home was something my late wife and I purchased with the hope of one day passing on to our son. I would make it a rental property instead. That was one of the biggest fights we had ever had. She insisted we make a compromise, but I refused to do so. When my son graduated from college, I put his name on the deed to the house with mine, which was another fight, but I felt he was the appropriate inheritor to his mother's share. I didn't share any of the rental income with him though, as I was still paying all of the taxes and insurance. At this point, the mortgage is paid off. I net over $2,000 a month from this house, which goes into the household budget. My son just got engaged and he wants to move into the house after he marries his fiancée. He suggested he pay half of the rent and eventually buy out my share of the house. I told my son I agreed to his plan of saving up to buy out my share, but instead of paying rent, he should just take over the taxes and insurance. We agreed to this. My wife is livid and says that I'm a massive jerk for dramatically decreasing our household income without consulting her. She likened my decision to financial mistreatment. I suggested we downsize to a smaller house now that our oldest 2 kids are leaving the nest, and we could rent out the larger one and be in the same situation as before, owning 2 homes and getting rental income on one. She called me a selfish jerk and won't even speak to me now. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Why even get married if you refuse to take anything that your wife says seriously? Maybe try treating her like an actual human and take what she has to say into consideration. There's no telling how many years this woman has been allowing you to be her husband, sharing her life with you, building a family with you, and even at this point, after all these years, you still flat out disregard what she has to say because you side with your daddy's boy. If she had known you would go on to pick your nepotism baby over her, I doubt she would have wasted her life with you. I hope she leaves you and is They always say that. I hope she leaves you and is able to get her fair share, which involves you selling that house and splitting the profits with her, not with your daddy's boy who wants to live in daddy's house for the rest of his life. Your wife deserves so much better. My brother married the mother of his daughter's bully and moved them into his house. My brother, 39 male, has a daughter, Piper, who's 15. When Piper was 4, her mom passed. My brother told Piper so much about her, and they had some special photos of her mom that were treasured. When Piper was 6, she started being teased by this girl called Nancy, who's now 15. It continued on for over a year and ultimately came to a head when Nancy tore up a photo of Piper's mom that Piper brought into school for some show-and-tell family edition her class was doing. From that day on, Piper did not like Nancy. Because of that incident, my brother and Nancy's mom met. They became friends, and a few months after the incident, where Nancy tore up the photo, they started dating, and they married a year later. Piper pulled away from my brother when she found out he was dating Nancy's mom, and even more when they moved in together and got married. Nancy was actually happy and tried to get close to Piper, but Piper wanted nothing to do with that. Nancy's mom mentioned how being sisters would mend the rift, and I thought that was kind of crazy given what went down. My brother only mentioned to me recently that he really thought Piper and Nancy would be sisters and would be close by now. But Piper doesn't want anything to do with Nancy still and doesn't trust her around anything important. I told my brother that's because he moved too fast to get that kind of relationship with them. I said he and his wife started dating and Nancy hadn't even apologized, and then Piper was still upset about who he was dating and Nancy being in her life more when they got married. I told him at no point did he try to make what happened better for Piper. He thought his marriage license would somehow erase the hurt Piper felt and the bullying Nancy put Piper through for more than a year. I said maybe if he had given it time, let Nancy apologize, and given the girls space where they weren't living together to interact outside of school, things could have been different. But you had one kid who was hurt and angry and another who was eager to have a dad and a sibling after only having her mom. My brother said I expected him to let Piper dictate his life. I said no, not what I said. I said if he wanted Piper to be happy and embrace Nancy as a sibling, then he should have taken things more slowly to get that outcome. He told me it was none of my business and I was overstepping and I'm just his little sister. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your brother sucks and he needed to hear it. Being sisters will mend the rift is the kind of BS rationalization people make when they don't want to face how disgusting it is that they're bringing Piper's bully into her home, into her family. My brother said I expected him to let Piper dictate his life? Ugh, yeah, God forbid a parent be expected to prioritize their kid's well-being or anything. What your brother needs to realize is that, sure, he can refuse to care about his teenage daughter, but Piper is fast approaching the age of adulthood when he can no longer dictate her life. I think he'll be in for a rude awakening when his daughter drops him just as coldly as he's dropped her. Not the jerk. He shoved aside his daughter's feelings for his own personal happiness. I think it's incredibly gross he even started being friends with the parent of his daughter's bully, much less dating and then marrying her. Did they tell this lovely story of how they met at their wedding? He's probably permanently damaged his relationship with his daughter. And your brother is the one who brought it up. You didn't just say it out of nowhere. If it wasn't your business, then maybe he shouldn't have been talking about it with you. He's just mad you called him out on his BS. This is gonna come full circle when Piper goes no contact once she's old enough to leave home. People don't magically embrace their unapologetic bullies because their parents decided to shack up and force them into a sibling relationship. This whole dynamic is probably a nightmare come true for Piper. You are right on all fronts, but there's very little he can do now to mend the situation, which he massively fumbled, so I understand why he would rather play dumb. Not the jerk. Nobody is the jerk in this situation. Your brother was hurting and found love. He found it, good for him, but he didn't do a good job handling the situation with his daughter. That doesn't make him a jerk. Parents aren't perfect. Things can be handled in better ways, and as long as you learn from mistakes or are willing to evolve as a parent, it's okay. Karen demands to put a tracker on my phone. I'm 28, female. My life has not turned out the way I wanted it to. I still live at home with my parents who are extremely controlling. All my friends have left the country, and so I'm on my own a lot. Most of my time is spent at home, at work, or going on solo walks. I don't drink, I don't go to the gym or play sports anymore. I don't have hobbies outside the house. I haven't dated anyone for 7 years. All in all, a very uninteresting life. My one solace is being outdoors in nature and walking. My parents aren't happy with this. They think I shouldn't go out on walks by myself because it's dangerous, in their words. I knew it would be better to ease their concerns if I had someone to go on walks with me, but I don't. My mom has been trying to get me to put "share my location" on my phone with her for years. I understand that she worries about my safety. However, the big problem for me is I know it's not just about my safety. She'll use it to become my stalker. I know this because she has my dad share his location with her and vice versa. She sits and stares at her screen and will say things like,
"Oh, your father just left tennis. Oh, your father has just arrived at work. Oh, your father is leaving the pub."
Now, I don't have anything to hide, but it is one boundary that I've held to, and I've been so proud of myself for not caving. Today, I decided I'd take a trip up the coast and go for a walk along the sea. I told my parents about my plans at 10:30 a.m. My mom asked that I call her and keep in touch. Once I got there, 2 p.m., I called her and told her where I was. I also told her what walk and route I would be taking. I didn't tell her when I would be home, but she also didn't ask. I also didn't message to say I was on my way home. My parents were furious when I arrived back, 8 p.m. My dad told me that I no longer had a say and that it was mandatory for me to have a tracker on my phone. I told him that I had done everything asked of me. I had called, explained where I was going, etc. I also said they could have called me if they were that concerned about my whereabouts. So as a result, I've been punished. The car that I drive is technically my dad's, and so he has taken the keys away. He says that I can buy my own car or grant them access to my tracking information. They said they would never do this to me, hold the fact that they bought the car over my head. Also, it makes no sense for me to buy a new car now. I'm at the final stage of a graduate recruitment process, and if I'm successful, I'll be moving to London in September. However, I need to survive between now and then, and without a car, the little life I have is impossible. So, am I the jerk for refusing to let them put a tracker on my phone when their concern is my safety? Edit. My dad hasn't told me that he has taken the keys. I've got a work event today, and he plans for me to not find them when I need to go. Your parents are incredibly toxic, but you may need to put up with this until you can get out. OP. I'm in my bedroom with my door closed, and my dad just walked past and said, "Stupid jerk," at my door. Trying not to cry that my wonderful day has been ruined. It does feel toxic. Can you take public transport? OP. Yes, I can, but the public transport system here is not very good. My work is a 10-minute drive away, but via public transport, it would take me an hour. I do work from home most days though, so that is something. I could also go to parks that are within walking distance for some outdoors. Do you pay to live there? OP. I only pay a nominal amount of £200 a month, as per my dad's request. I do feel guilty about it, as I know people normally pay a lot more than that. Does your dad know that your mom stalks him? Yes, he does, and he doesn't seem to mind. Do they pay for your phone? They don't pay for my phone, though the car is theirs. Unfortunately, the car I bought had an engine failure. I couldn't afford to just buy another car, so this was the compromise solution. I had actually been considering asking to buy the car from them, but it now seems silly, especially with the London move potentially happening and this drama. Update. Things were very frosty the next couple of days. My mom eventually came to me and said that she was going to address the elephant in the room. She said that she was very disappointed in me, but as I didn't care about her, she will just have to live without it, the tracker on my phone. I think she expected me to cave at that point, but I didn't. I said, "Thank you for understanding," and that was it. The car keys were returned to the drawer and nothing more was said about it from anyone, including my dad. To this day, I have no idea why the 180-degree flip happened. Although you have all helped me realize that I have an unhealthy codependent relationship with my parents, I think it will just take time to set boundaries and learn how to be my own person. I still love them a lot, and I know they love me too, even though we aren't the type of family that says so. Which leads me to my other news. I got the job in London. I've officially moved out, and I'm living there now. It still feels surreal. I know it's going to take some time to get used to living independently, but I'm ready to be my own person and learn how to do things on my own. Honestly, I had given up hope that this day would ever get here. I feel so much happier and can genuinely say that I'm proud of myself. If anyone has any tips for living away from home for the first time, please let me know. Am I the jerk for calling off my engagement over a dog? For some context, I, 24 female, have been dating my fiance, Todd, since early 2021. He's been an amazing person since the very beginning. We met at my job where he started becoming a regular and even asked me out. Todd isn't a huge fan of animals, unlike me, but this was never really a problem because he got along with my dog. I've had my dog since a little before I graduated high school. I volunteered at a local shelter when she came in. A shy little beagle puppy, Nala. She wasn't doing well at the shelter, so I offered to foster her, and well, the rest is history. I moved out of my dad's house when I turned 18, and other than some essentials, she's all I brought with me when I was thrown into adulthood. I got a cheap apartment after that, and it's just been me and her ever since. I don't believe it would be an understatement to say I love her more than anything. Todd knew this. Recently, I found out I was pregnant about 2 months ago. Todd seemed to be more and more agitated with Nala since then, even asking if I'd consider rehoming her. I said no and explained that I was worried about her not eating. She has some pretty bad separation anxiety. We got into a huge argument about it where he began to complain about her fur being all over and about the way that she always sits by my feet when we do things and how I let her on all my furniture. It's my apartment and I bought all the furniture. He also went so far as to say I'd be a terrible mother and neglect our baby if I didn't get rid of her. We went back and forth for a while, and by the end of it, he was just kind of really silent. I assumed that was the end of it and went to our bedroom to calm down a bit. Nala followed me into the room, and I sat with her on the floor for a while, just thinking about some things. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. The next morning, I went through my routine, put Nala in her pen. Todd goes to work earlier in the morning than I do, and I went to work. When I came back, she was gone. Her bed was gone, her toys were gone, and Todd was gone. At first, I was panicking. I thought someone had stolen my Nala. I searched the whole house, and then I called Todd. He didn't answer. I called maybe 15 times before I gave up. At that point, I was starting to think a little more clearly and noticed that all of her things were missing. Her toys, her treats, her pen, her leashes, even her box of winter things that sits on my bookshelf. Then I was angry. Todd is the only person who has a set of keys to my apartment other than me and my landlord. and my landlord adores Nala. I angrily texted Todd a paragraph demanding my dog back or I'd call the police and begin calling shelters to see if I could find her. I had no luck. Todd read the messages, but he didn't reply, only to come home about an hour later angrily shouting at me as soon as he came in. This quickly led to another screaming match where he broke one of my picture frames, and I threatened to call off the wedding and still call the police. I eventually managed to find out he'd given my dog to his cousin who lives in another state. He brought up again how I'd be a terrible mother and how he needed to do this for our family, and that I was only being difficult because I'm pregnant. I told him that he no longer had a family and to get out of my apartment. That was 2 days ago. I've been crying ever since, and I'm working on getting his cousin to give me back my Nala. I blocked Todd on everything, but now his family won't stop harassing me on everything, and his mother is threatening to sue me for the money they put into the wedding. There's still time for them to get a refund. They only paid for catering. I'm really upset right now, but am I the jerk for how I reacted? Edit. I should have specified, but I wrote this while I was worked up, but I did file a police report. They aren't being too helpful at the moment, but they said they would try to contact departments in the other state. Update. I'm talking to the police and to Ted's cousin, but I also did reach out to his family. Apparently, Todd had told them that I was a scammer, that I'd taken the money for the wedding and was planning to divorce him for the money afterward. He also claimed that I was neglecting my dog, and that's why he had to give her away. She's super nervous when I'm not around, so I'm worried they might believe him. I did send his parents a nice lengthy set of screenshots of all the vile things he sent to me and a few of the voicemail recordings. His mother apologized and claimed she had handled him. I've always been pretty close with his family, so I was also pretty upset with the way they reacted after I called off the engagement. Now I understand why. I'm changing all my locks, and I already have a Ring doorbell in my apartment, and I'm going to get more cameras. I do hear you though. I'm honestly not sure I want to bring a baby into this cluster mess. Thanks again, and I'll update you once I've got my fur baby back and his life is ruined. My mom ditched me for her new family, so I got revenge. I'm 19, male. When I was born, my mom was 17 and my dad was 19. My dad has been in prison the majority of my life for non-violent charges. My mom got married to my stepdad when I was 10. Just to clarify, my mom and dad were never married. They dated each other and eventually hooked up and had me. My problems with my mom started when she got pregnant with my sister, and then after she had my sister, she got pregnant again and had my brother, and I became like a ghost she hardly paid attention to. She neglected me emotionally, and I felt like I was unwanted in her life. I didn't matter anymore. As I grew up, I continued to try to get her to talk to me, but she was always busy with my brother and sister. Every family activity they did together, she always excluded me. It was always my stepdad and mom and my siblings, except for me, like I wasn't part of the family. This is how I came to the conclusion that my mom hates me or that she disliked me. As I mentioned before, I have 2 younger siblings who are 4 and 9. One day, my mom comes into my room. She's all dressed up and racing around, and I ask her if she's going somewhere. She tells me no, and I go back to playing on my computer. No later than 15 minutes, I hear the garage door go up, so I race downstairs thinking, what the heck? Sure enough, my mom, stepdad, and my sister and brother are all dressed up and in the truck, and I'm standing outside, feeling really uncomfortable. The look she gave me as she jumped into the truck made me feel that I was interrupting her. There wasn't any, "Oh yeah, sorry." It was just a look of absolute disgust. I don't cry very easily, but something about the whole thing really got to me, and I went back inside and cried a bit, but then I got over it. It wasn't the first time this happened. She texted me 10 minutes later, telling me they're going to the park. I don't respond because I would have just worked myself up again. Fast forward, they get home, I was eating dinner, and my 9-year-old sister rushes in after my mom, super excited to tell me about everything they had done. They hadn't gone to the park. My mom had lied to me, saying they went to the park when they had actually gone to Dave & Buster's. They also went to go get milkshakes and went shopping. I was visibly crushed by it, and my sister noticed I had gotten upset. I could tell my mom was about to start making excuses and making the circumstances my fault, so to keep my little sister and brother from seeing that, I excused myself to my room quietly. It just sucked. I've been trying so hard to be a good son, despite the selfishness of my mother and her chaotically selfish ways have on me. But once I realized that crap isn't normal, I started questioning our relationship. I didn't see any safe way out of this without ending up on the streets, broke, 19 years old, unemployed by the way. So I joined the army. It was a spur of the moment thing, and she still doesn't know. I can handle it, and it's the first decision I've actually made on my own. I cannot tell you how excited I am to leave for basic training soon. Edit. I would like people to know that I don't hate my brother or sister. I like them, and they also like me, and we have good memories of spending time together. At this point, they are the only thing I consider family, and I hope they understand why I moved away. I hope that when I come back from the army, they'll still see me as their big brother. I would also like people to know that my grandparents from my mom's side of the family passed already, and my grandparents from my biological dad's side of the family also passed. My biological dad is the only kid they had. My mom only has one sister, and she's married, and they have 3 kids around the same age as me. And she and her husband live paycheck to paycheck, and I don't want to be a burden to them. That's why I never went to live with them. Update. Today, my biological dad called me and said that he got out of prison 2 weeks ago. He's living in his parents' house. My grandparents, when they passed, they left their house to my dad, so I went to go see him. We had a good conversation. He apologized for not being there for me. I told him if he's truly sorry for not being there for me, he should make up for it by being there for me now. He told me he was going to try his best to be there for me and that he got a job in construction. I told him I was going into the army, and he broke down in tears and told me he was proud of me. I couldn't help it but cry as well. It was a very emotional moment. I told him because he hasn't been there all my life, I'm not going to call him dad just because he's my biological dad. I'm going to call him by his name. If he wants me to call him dad, he has to earn that. He said that's fine. I plan on going back tomorrow and being there for a while. Of course, it's going to be after he gets out of work. Update. I'm ready to go. I'm here at my biological father's house. My mom doesn't know I'm leaving for the army. The only thing she knows is that I moved out of her house and I'm staying with my biological father. I left a note telling her everything about how she's treated me, except for the fact that I'm going into the army. I'm going to call an Uber to take me to the station where I'm going to get picked up by a bus and then take me to the army. My biological dad is paying for the Uber, in case y'all are wondering. I don't know if my mom has read the letter yet because I'm not there to see her reaction. I did talk to my sister, who's 10, about me moving out because I got a job. She said she was sad, but she asked if I was going to come back and visit, and I told her yes, when I have the time. That's all for now. Thanks for everything. Thanks for listening to my pathetic life. I, 16, male, have a 4-month-old daughter. Ex-girlfriend wants to go to college, and I'm worried. My parents divorced when I was 10, but lived primarily with my mom. Tiffany, who's 16, her parents are together. When our parents found out she was pregnant, her parents kicked her out, and my mom kicked me out. So now we live with my dad. During the pregnancy, my dad took my mom to court and got primary sole custody. I know what this means because I had to go to court for my daughter. He sued Tiffany's parents for legal guardianship, and they are mad and refuse to talk to us. I'm in my bedroom, and my daughter is in her bedroom, and my ex is in the guest room that's now hers. My dad made a deal with us. We live with him until 18 with no rent payment. At 18, we need to decide what it is we're going to do. I wasn't really that good in school, and Tiffany is an A student, so I took my GED, and my dad got me into welding school. I finish in 2 months. I also work full-time, so I do welding school at night. Tiffany goes to school and works on the weekends at Wendy's. This whole thing is a huge ordeal. We literally have no life. My dad helps, but not that much, because he feels it's our responsibility, which I agree, but it still sucks. I work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. at a warehouse, and I go to school from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tiffany is home by 2:30 and picks up our daughter from daycare. We help each other a lot, and then I head off to school and she stays with her at home until I get home and do it all over again day after day. When our daughter was born, my dad made us go to court. We have 50-50 custody, and I don't pay child support because she lives with us. Because I work full-time, I can get health care for my daughter and myself, and it sucks that it costs me $300 a month and daycare is $400 a week. Literally, Tiffany works just so we can pay for daycare, and I pay for everything else. When we are short for cash, my dad will help because he sees that we're trying. My dad has been our rock. When we're tired and exhausted, he will step in and give us a break here and there, but he makes sure we have everything we need and keeps us motivated. Tiffany wants to apply to college soon, and I'm worried because I don't want to keep living with her, and I don't think I can keep our daughter full-time as a welder working 12-hour shifts. But she says she will start a community college and work, but wants to stay with us, living together since it's easier. Since I will be working, and it will be best for us to stay with my dad. But my dad said at 18, we have to pay rent. She doesn't mind, but I don't want to keep living with her because we aren't together. I'm unsure how to tell her this. My dad thinks she should stay with us as long as she is a full-time student to finish her degree because I'm already getting my career. I just feel that all this is unfair because the burden is on me. I guess I'm ranting because I'm scared and unsure what all of this means. Edit. I guess my thing about her living with us is that we are more like siblings now. We get along and joke and stuff, but since she's my ex, I feel weirded out by it. Maybe I need to take a breather since everyone is saying it's a good thing. Also, I needed to hear it from other people and not just my dad, and he's pretty solid and I should thank him, maybe take him to dinner or something. Edit. My dad isn't kicking us out at 18, but he wants us to be realistic to the world and pay bills. The money he gets from Tiffany's parents, he just gives it to her. She's saving up money for a car and uses other money for her specific foods and clothes. Before I became a dad, my dad always wanted me to live with him at 18 and figure it out and stay with him and save money to buy a house. But when he found out I was going to be a dad, he wasn't mad, but disappointed and said everything has to change. He also is paying for my welding school of $20,000 and he bought me my car, but I do have to pay my own insurance. He does help as long as he sees that we're trying and not being lazy. When school recently started, he took my daughter to daycare every morning and helped Tiffany with a routine to get schoolwork done. Final edit. I have to get to class now. Tiffany wants to be a nurse or PA, but the college told her nursing school is hard to get into and it's best to have a high school diploma, which is why she's still in high school and working the weekends. But someone mentioned a dual thing for community college and we'll look into that. So we couldn't get daycare assistants because we're minors and they used my dad's salary. The funny thing is, I can't open a checkings account for myself because I'm a minor, but the bank allowed me to open a children's account for my daughter because I'm her parent. The irony. I read every single comment and it's given me a different point of view. And I guess college seems so far and I was counting years, but it's really not that bad. She's like a sister now, and those who asked, I doubt we'll be getting back together. Honestly, I'm not thinking about anything like that right now. I'm too tired to think of a relationship or that type of future. Update. Tiff and my dad went to the school and were able to get her enrolled in college courses because of her grades. She won't graduate high school way too fast, but she will have enough to finish high school hours by next December, so 6 months early. She reapplied for assistance. We got a voucher for daycare, so now it's $50 a week. She quit her job so she can focus on school, but she doesn't start college until spring, so that's cool, it gives her some time. She still wants to be a nurse, so that's cool too. I got a new job that pays more as a forklift operator and will give me an internship for welding, which I won't be able to start until November, but they're paying me really good. I started Monday. My dad and I had a long talk about my fears, and he reassured me that it's okay to be scared, but we have to have a game plan. He's fixing up the basement to make 2 bedrooms and a living room, like a little apartment, because he said Tiff and I will need space as we grow. He wants me to buy the house when I'm 18, like he did with his parents, and he will help me pay it as long as Tiff gets to stay until she finishes college and let her make her own choice. We all agreed this is the best option, and we're all already much happier now. I guess I just needed to let it out. Tiff and I are great while being parents is hard, but it's now been good and we're feeling better. My mom and Tiff's parents still haven't spoken to us because we aren't married, which does make me sad, but it's okay, we have my dad. Am I the jerk for refusing to bleach my hair for a wedding? So I have a weird problem, and after I told my boyfriend, he told me this sub would be the perfect place to get help on it. So I, 25 female, am meant to be in the bridal party of my friend Zoe's, who's 26, wedding in December of 2024. A few days ago, she met with me and the rest of the bridal party to discuss what the plan was for hair, makeup, dresses, etc. At first, it seemed reasonable. She's going for a winter wonderland type of theme, so blue dresses, all in different shades, lined up as a gradient, with silvery accents, snowflake jewelry, and soft makeup. Even blue contacts for those of us without blue eyes. Last one's a bit weird, but it's no big deal to me. I've worn color contacts for Halloween. The bit that ended up being an issue for me is that Zoe requested we all get our hair dyed. A couple members of the bridal group are natural blondes with dyed ends, and so is Zoe, but she wants to go platinum for the wedding. But the rest of us are 2 brunettes, a strawberry blonde, and a redhead. I'm one of the brunettes, and I'm the only one in the group who has never dyed or bleached their hair. I've considered it, but I can never stay settled on what I want to do, and I'd hate to spend money on something that I end up hating. On top of that, my mom spent from ages 5 to 13 flat ironing my hair almost every day. It really damaged my hair. I'm almost certain that it's resulted in my hair being thinner than it used to be. I know bleaching can also damage your hair, and I don't feel comfortable taking that risk. I told Zoe I wouldn't be able to dye my hair. She insisted that it would be fine, as my hair seemed quite healthy and she would be paying for the bleaching treatments for all of us. I again said no, thanks so much, but I can't. I asked if I could just wear a wig, and she said no, that wigs are cheap and unnatural, and she wants us to have our real hair bleached instead of some cheap imitation for the day. After more back and forth, she told me I should go home and think about the fact that I'm ruining her vision and that I'd be ruining the photos and wedding video that she and her fiancé will be putting together for his grandparents. I apologized, paid for my meal, and I left. I really don't want to dye my hair, but I also don't want to ruin Zoe's perfect day. I don't think I'm being difficult or wrong here, but am I? My coworker brings her dog to work. She was asked to stop after a few incidents, so she wrote us a crazy 4-page memo. I live in a small town and started working as a night auditor in a hotel a few months back. I rarely ever interact with other employees, let alone the guests. I enjoy it. Lots of time to read and mess around on Reddit. Recently, due to several wildfires and the mandatory evacuations they've created, we've had an influx of long-stay guests who have lost their homes. We also have several fire crews in-house, which has been fun. No sarcasm there, they're great. The issue, however, is this. The other night auditor brings her dog to work. It is not a service animal. While the hotel is pet-friendly, she's been asked to stop bringing her pet in with her. She has ignored these requests. Recently, we've been getting complaints. Her dog has chased people through the building, attempted to bite guests, attack them, and fight other dogs. In response to these complaints, she started locking her dog in the guest dining area and kitchen. Her dog has been going to the bathroom in the kitchen, which is an issue. When our boss has finally put the boot down and told her no more pets, she wrote a 4-page memo about the issue. Short version, she admitted that her dog had done everything stated above, but the reason people were complaining was because of the Illuminati's plot against her and her pet. I wish I was kidding. Here's the memo, in all of its glory. I've redacted identifying names, including the dog's name. Communication post, September 8, 2022. At this time, it would be best practice to leave all employee pets at home due to several complaints and concerns from guests. While we understand that we know and love the pets of staff members, we cannot possibly tolerate pets being aggressive to guests. September 16, 2022. Dear staff, this letter is in response to the comments above, which was posted in the communication log on September 8th. If you have any comments, please feel free to post them at the bottom of this letter. A bit of background about my dog, my canine companion. She is 1 year old and has been with me at this hotel since she was 8 weeks old. Together, she and I are the night auditors. It's worked out well because she stays awake with me during the shift and we both sleep during the day. She likes all of the front desk staff and gets excited when it's time to come to work so she can greet them and begin her shift. So far, she likes this person and this person the best, possibly because they've made her feel welcome and they're kind to her. Many of the guests also like her, and she has received many compliments from them. She has gone through various stages of development and growth, and presently she's at the stage of finding her voice and honing her socialization skills in a public setting. She and I eat a plant-based diet to teach her non-violence and harmlessness. Her food is scientifically fortified, which I have to purchase online from a specialty company in order for her to take in all of the necessary nutrients to keep her strong and healthy in body, mind, and spirit. I take her training seriously, and the ultimate goal is for her to be peaceful, calm, socialized, and comfortable with all. So far, she sees the hotel as her house and is presently working on understanding that it's okay that other people besides the staff members may come and go through the front door. She barks to announce the arrival of people she doesn't know, and therefore I keep her gated, behind the desk when guests are circulating about. She does not bark behind the desk. In time, I feel she will relax more and more. When everyone has gone to sleep and it's quiet in the hotel, I allow her to play with her toys in the lobby area, and she likes to follow me into the laundry room, etc., while I go about my cleaning duties. Her socialization training is something we diligently work on, and there's still room for improvement in this area. The other night, Redacted informed me that 2 guests approached her on September 8th and yelled at her about something. Apparently, the guests stated that my dog barked at them. It's possible that my dog barked at them, as stated. However, I can't recall who this is or verify this because neither of these people approached me about the issue or came to the desk to speak with me directly. I apologize again for this, as I know it doesn't feel good to be on the receiving end of a complaint or when someone unloads on us. It was also brought to my attention from a different staff member that the man named Redacted, who stayed with us on August 31st, complained to the front desk that my dog barked at him and chased him down the hall. This I can verify to be true. It was after hours, quiet in the hotel, and she was following me around while I cleaned. Mr. Redacted unexpectedly walked down the hall and it startled her, but she also chased after him as he walked away and expressed her disapproval of him. I redirected her immediately and apologized on her behalf.
Gee, maybe this is why you shouldn't have your dog with you at work.
A bit later, the lobby and the hotel were quiet again. No one was around, and so I allowed her to play with her toys in the lobby area. It goes without saying that the lobby is a public area, and the guests should always feel comfortable coming and going as they like. But Mr. Redacted was making his presence known deliberately to rouse my dog and walked through the lobby several times in the wee hours of the morning to go smoke in front of the building. I finally realized that he was doing this purposely to harass her, and I put her in the other room with the door shut. His response was to yell at her, and the following morning he reported the incident to the front desk and was rewarded a free night stay at the hotel due to his complaint. Adding here that Mr. Redacted was charged a cleaning fee due to housekeeping finding towels and sheets that were filthy and everything had to be thrown away. He's a troubled man, and while we can hold compassion for him, I don't recommend he be allowed back at this hotel. As stated above, there is room for improvement with my dog's socialization skills, which she and I are dedicated towards making her a success. It is important that she behaves properly and like a nice young lady while she is here. She's a loving, funny, and loyal little being, and it is a blessing that she is here on planet Earth. She's helped me to tolerate the grave shift hours too, with her excellent company and companionship she provides. I'm now going to explain something that may seem strange, but it is necessary to add this because it is the truth and it relates to what happened with the complaints against my dog. Some of you are already aware that my second job is light working. I am a light worker for Planetary Ascension. Recently, I completed some work to shine light upon the reptilian negative alien races who are present on this Earth plane and who are behind organized crime. The reptilians have demonstrated vicious behaviors, and they are very dangerous towards humans and animals. This information about their presence has been kept from mainstream society. However, things are heating up planet-wide, and a full disclosure event will be taking place in the near future. I've studied these alien races since 2015, and I am acutely familiar with their attacks against those of us who stand up for the light and shine light upon their darkness. The recent complaint against my dog was a deliberate and planned attack against me. The reptilians targeted my dog and used the situation to get back at me, to retaliate because of my recent work in calling out their crimes. My contact with the authorities was on the same day, August 31st, that Mr. Redacted made his appearance, and the other two complaints came afterwards for 3 in a row. Noting that the reptilians are reading this post as they are able to track, spy, and interfere via advanced technology through television, computers, cell phones, and other devices. Therefore, I'm letting them know that God is my witness, and I will assist in standing up for those who have no voice. To recap, under normal circumstances, and especially at a hotel which allows dogs, if a dog barks at someone, normally the person would shrug it off, as long as it doesn't continue, which it didn't. I redirect my dog each time and lovingly encourage her to be peaceful and calm. She also has never nipped at anyone. Her barking is instinctive, and with time it will ease up, and I feel confident that she will be more at ease as she gets through this growth stage. Also, my dog is absolutely heartbroken that I've left her at home. I'm keeping her at home for a few weeks to work more intensely on her training and plan on using a vibrating bark collar to better get her attention. Her time away from the hotel will allow the tension from the dark forces to settle too. When I feel she has improved with her barking and listening skills, I plan on bringing her back to work with me. Thanks for listening and for keeping an open mind and an open heart.
Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to tell you all that I am Karen Akatosh of the Galactic Federation of Light, sent here by the Ashtar Command from the Pleiadian system. I am here to spread love and light and to fight the Draconian...
Karen?
Yes?
Shut up. Karen just drops off her baby at my apartment and demands that I babysit for her. I, female 24, am an aunt to my 1-year-old niece, Ava. My sister and brother-in-law live close to me, so I babysit for them sometimes. They don't pay me, but I'm happy to do it anyway. On Friday was their anniversary, and they asked me 3 weeks in advance if I could babysit. I provisionally agreed because I had nothing else planned. My plans changed, however, when some of my old college friends told me they were stopping by my town on Friday. I haven't seen them in nearly 3 years, and I really wanted to see them. I gave my sister 5 days' notice that I could no longer babysit on Friday, and that she would have to make other arrangements. She didn't respond to the text, but she read it, so I assumed that it was okay. On Friday, however, sister stopped by my house with Ava. I was confused and asked why she was here. She told me she was leaving Ava with me as originally planned. I said again I was busy. She replied that family is more important than my silly college friends, and I should step up to my responsibility as an aunt. Before I could protest, she bolted back to her car where brother-in-law was, and they drove off, leaving Ava with me. I tried to call her after she left, but she had her phone off and none of my calls went through. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't leave Ava alone, but I also didn't want to cancel my plans. There's no other family members who live near me. However, I do have a friend, Jade, who lives near. She's good with kids and does babysitting as a side hustle. I called her and explained the situation, even offering to pay her to look after Ava, but she was understanding and said she'd do it for free. I thanked her profusely and dropped Ava off. I texted my sister to say I had left Ava with Jade and to collect her from her house. It's relevant to the story that neither sister nor Ava know Jade personally. My sister didn't respond immediately, but after about 2 hours, she started spamming my phone. I turned my phone off as I was already out by that point anyway. They picked up Ava later that evening and she was perfectly happy. However, my sister and brother-in-law are furious at me for dumping Ava with a stranger, even though they know Jade is a trusted friend of mine. They accused me of endangering my own niece. Many other family members have sided with them, and I've been getting angry texts all weekend. I really don't know what to think. I feel like I acted as best I could given the circumstances. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Yes, your sister asked you 3 weeks in advance, but 5 days is plenty of warning that you wanted to change plans. The fact she didn't call you back or try to negotiate with you and just drop your niece off and ran isn't funny or cute. She's the parent, and her kid is her and her husband's responsibility, not yours. Welcome to parenthood. She seems to be confused on this point. You don't owe her free babysitting at all. Her antics of drop and dash and then using other family as flying monkeys to guilt trip you are childish, selfish, and disrespectful. So for the foreseeable future, no matter what, when she asks you to babysit, tell her no. Make her reach out to other mommy friends, get into a babysitter group, or her husband's family or friends can step up. Only offer to take your niece when you want to see her at your convenience, or be available as a sitter in a true emergency, like a hospital or funeral home is involved. But other than that, she needs boundaries and consequences for her crap. Give them to her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Sometimes entitled parents need to learn the hard way. If an entitled parent is furious with you over a decision you made, you probably did the right thing.
That's all for now, but don't be blue. We'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Redder every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright. Now click this playlist, come follow along. We'll be right here. Until then, so long.